The time has come for us to finally answer the call. Was it worth it? Let's talk about it. Good morning, evening, or afternoon. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the XP Podcast, episode 30, for the final week of October 2022, also known as the single greatest month in the entire year. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Z, and joining me once again, back from his 2-week hiatus, it is Thorkaki on PlayStation, Mr. DJK. What's going on?
Joining you on PlayStation 5 now. So a lot going on. Outside of that, not too much really, but yeah, excited to be back and with you in ultra high definition now.
Yeah, so how's the experience going? How are you liking it so far?
Awesome. The controller still freaks me out here and there with
It's so
or
good, man.
not really freaks me out, but just mind blows. Like we were talking, other than the issue I was having with the campaign error messaging out on me, like some of the stuff just is on another level with, um feeling trucks drive by and like you would feel that rumble depending on where you are. You might feel that. You feel it now. The different I even noticed last night playing multiplayer on Call of Duty, the different gun setups will give you a different vibration. So if you're using SMG, it's short little vibrations. If it's a normal M4 loadout, it's like it's not as rapid, but it has more of a hit to it. The different sniper, like everything, it's insane.
Yeah,
And the
like
visuals are just incredible already.
like I was telling Peyton and my parents back in the day when I got it, well, I guess not back in the day, 2 years ago when I got it, I'm like, yeah, the console's great. It's fast. The games look pretty. It operates at it operates in a way that it stays out of your way, which is good. That's what it's supposed to do. But the controller really is the next gen of at least the PS5, The controller is mind-boggling, and it excites me every time I get a new game to see how they utilize it. And I am very happy to report, we'll talk about this much more in depth later on in this episode, but Call of Duty uses the controller very well. They've always done. They did it when the PS5 launched with Black Ops Cold War. They did it with, I guess Vanguard. I never actually played Vanguard, but they supposedly did it with Vanguard. I'd be hoping, but yeah, it really is awesome when that controller is doing everything that it's doing, and you get this deeper sense of connectivity with your games. It's cool.
Very cool.
All right, so anything else happening in your life?
Not really. I mean, that finished House of Dragon. To the amusement of you guys in the group chat, I finished She-Hulk.
Ugh.
Probably start Ring of Power next. We just finished the Watcher, which is a creepy real life event that happened to people that I had known about. So
Yeah. Wait, did you say you knew the people?
no, I didn't know the people.
Oh.
I just knew that like I already had known that was a thing. This was obviously a very heavily dramatized version of that, but
Yeah.
terrified nonetheless.
Well, I watch this one guy on YouTube a lot called Mr. Ballin. I don't know if you've seen
Yep,
him.
my wife loves it.
Yeah, I love that guy, and it was kind of creepy. Not creepy. It was like there's a word for this phenomenon, but I can't remember the word. It's like when you hear about something for the first time, or when you hear a saying said for the first time, whatever, then you constantly keep hearing it over and over again, and it's some sort of like syndrome, or it's not syndrome. Syndrome has analogies to like mental health, but it's some sort of phenomenon that once you learn about something, you hear more and more about it. So I heard that story Mr. Ballin did. He did an episode on those people, and then literally 3 hours later, I was looking on YouTube, sorry, Netflix, and I saw that, and I was like, oh shit, well that's interesting. So I forget what it's called, but it happens all the time if you pay attention to
Mhm.
it. Like you learn about something, and then you just, for some reason, start hearing about it. People talk about it. People say the saying that you heard about for the first time. I can't remember what it's called, but it happens to me all the time. Now that I'm aware of it. But let's get into the episode proper. As we always do, we start with the question of the week. And as is tradition, or as tradition has become, I always let DJ pick out a question for me each and every episode that he is on. So, Mr. Thorkage, take it away.
All right. With House of Dragon being done and season 2 not coming until sometime in 2024. And I mean Ring of Power is over. I'm not sure. I think they're doing another season next year. I forget their timeline. Um, like with the news with Henry Cavill going back to being Superman and Witcher not coming out I forget when you said before the next season is coming out, but
The next season is expected next year. So, sometime.
okay.
Yeah, probably in
Um
the fall.
so like basically we know Last of Us, a Fallout show, a Horizon show. Um, I think there's a few others I couldn't remember them off the top of my head. So, which of those shows that are supposed to be coming out next year, or the end of this year yet? What of those can kind of fill our void on House of Dragon, um, excitement wise, and just overall goodness wise, I guess. Um, which one of those or another show will kind of compete with House of Dragon, or at least fill the void for us when we don't have House of Dragon going on.
Yeah, like take up the mantle of being like, as you said, the next cultural significant TV
Yeah.
show. Like we get them every couple years. We get a show that seems to take the world by storm, and everybody's talking about it on Twitter and TikTok and social media and in person. Obviously the most recent one being House of the Dragon. Every single episode that came out, people would talk about everything and go crazy, which I have had to ignore because I actually haven't watched the final two episodes yet. I've been busy with the games I've been playing and getting into Q4, the holiday season at work, and me working in the electronics department. It's busy, and sometimes I just want to come home and just play some video games. So, but to answer your question, actually, before I answer your question, I wanted to let people know that Mr. George R. R. Martin has written and published another book, and guess what? It's not The Winds of Winter. So, in fact, this one's even more stupid. So it is a retelling or rewriting of Fire and Blood, the story that House of the Dragon's based off of. It's the same story, just told in a different manner with a bunch of artwork. I heard it's really good, the artwork, and it's a pretty cool collection. But dude, just
Well,
fucking finish your goddamn story.
I
Sorry.
was kind of wondering because like I haven't read through them yet. They've sporadically been on like Christmas lists and stuff, and it's just something that's I could buy it on my own. I just never pull the trigger on it because I mean, yeah, I could buy them one at a time, but I feel like it's more cost effective to literally just buy like a box set. But
Oh,
it's one of
definitely, yeah.
those I don't want to buy a box set and then, I'm gonna have to buy another 2 or 3 additional books when he finally finishes. So it's like I might as well just start buying them one at a time so I can start reading into them. And I figured like if I was him, I would have tried to finish the Game of Thrones storyline before they finish so like they had something to go off of instead of making up their own thing. Now granted they twist and turned a few things and made it better for TV storytelling or movie storytelling because that's kind of what those episodes became, especially towards the end. With they're basically small movies. But if I was him, I would have finished that and then you know they finished that main storyline, but now there's 3 or 4 other storylines to tell, and it's like now go back and clarify or add more of a story instead of from what you've told me when we've had our discussions here and there, like there's time jumps in the book of like during this time era, and it's like this is 200 years before Game of Thrones. Well, 170 years before Game of Thrones takes hold or takes place. It's like, uh,
Well, it's set 170 years before the birth of Daenerys.
Daenerys. Okay.
So,
You
Daenerys
remember if it
is
was her birth or if it was before her reign? But if it's,
no,
I mean,
it's
if it's her birth, I mean, there's so much that goes on, and it's like
I
I
mean, when Game of
almost,
Thrones starts, she is 12 in the book, I believe.
yeah,
So, obviously in the show she's much older, but
yeah, she's like 16 or 17 or something like that.
yeah. But so all
But
right,
it's like, yeah,
go.
um, I'm trying to think which one of these. Now, the Fallout one, I know you said you're not huge on the Fallout series. I've only ever really touched Fallout 4. Um, that's one of those for your other game or your other question you have. We'll touch next time I'm on about Horizon. I haven't seen much, I think, outside of maybe some concept art or some rumors of what the story would be. So I know you and me are hyped for that, but it's like kind of let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say my answer is the only one that has, in my mind, any real shot to garner the same amount of mass appeal that something like House of
It's Last
Dragon
of
does.
Us.
Yeah, is The Last of Us. Like, I'm very
I
excited
mean,
for a lot of these. I'm very excited for the Mass Effect show on Amazon. I'm excited. I'm excited for Horizon on Netflix. The Fallout one I'll be very interested in just because I don't like the shows. I think
mhm,
Assassin's Creed has a decent reach with us and all that, but the only one that has, in my eyes, a shot at garnering the same sort of attention is The Last of Us on
oh
HBO,
yeah,
because
for sure.
it is a story that lends itself very well to being reacted to online and being in garnering that sort of attention with its sort of very very dark themes and dark
And we know
and
it's going
good
to be done
characters.
good because it's the same. It's HBO who's doing House of Dragon, so it's not like, I mean, with Mass Effect, I you've said Amazon did very well with Reign of Power.
Well, they did good with it. I don't know about very
Um,
well, but
okay,
good.
it did good. A few of their other shows I've checked out have been, decent. Some of them a little convoluted and muddy kind of storytelling, but that's only gonna get better. I mean, he's got so much money to throw at that, or Amazon has so much money to throw at that part of their company that like it's only gonna get better. Horizon being on Netflix, I mean, I feel like Netflix has done a good job of paying for stuff like, I mean, their originals are through the roof, but like amount wise, but I mean, the only one that I can really think that was original to Netflix is Squid Games and Ozarks. And I mean, Ozarks is very good. Squid Games was seemed like it was something that was created in Korea, and then Netflix just kind of paid for it to get made the rest of the way, and then it became like as just hopefully this does good, we'll see what happens, and then it blew up, and now it's like they want to do Squid Games 2 and this, that, and the other, and it just um so I'm hopeful for Horizon, but we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I think the answer to this question is definitely Last of Us.
I mean,
We have a trailer for it. I mean, there's a trailer for Fallout, but I haven't taken the time to watch it yet. And I mean, we talked about the Last of Us trailer last time I was on, so
yeah. I mean, you look at something like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is a fantastic TV show. I loved it. A lot of people in the gaming industry love it, but it never really caught that same sort of fire and attention. I didn't see a lot of people online talking about it. There were some, and we got some good numbers. Sorry, the last time you were on, we talked about the story of how you know it jumped up the player base a lot. So it does
mhm.
have an impact, but we are talking about something on a whole nother level of cultural impact to where like I said, each and every week, everybody's talking about it from uh, Joe Schmo that never has seen a video game and all talks about House of Dragon, which I understand it's not a video game thing, but we're still trying to see or trying to talk about if any of these can reach that cultural significance. And like I said, the only thing I think has a chance is The Last of Us, and I honestly don't think it will reach that same sort of cultural significance. But you will see some people reacting to it. You'll see the online um, conversation or discourse, probably in
Well, and
vitriolic sense, but we'll still
I
see
feel like
people
that
talking
has
about it.
the I feel like that has the best pull for non-video game players. I feel Mass Effect and Horizon are that's it's gonna be very for the people that play those games. I mean, obviously they'll try to make it so it reaches out and covers everyone and not just the gaming community because otherwise then why make it? Like if you're gonna do that, then you might as well make a movie and hope you make your money back on that. I feel is the best route. But with Last of Us, now forgive me, I haven't played it yet. I will get to it. Um, that that it's not. It's kind of zombie survival, right? For Last of Us,
Yeah, I mean, it is,
it's
it,
a more in depth story, but
yeah,
so I mean,
it's a zombie game, but
I feel like it's and this has a little bit
that's
better
not really
done
giving it
story.
that's not really giving it its dues. I would say it's
Yeah.
more akin to like Cormac McCarthy's The Road
Okay.
set in
So
a zombie apocalypse.
see, and that seems much better, and I think it'll have a better story because I mean, I think Walking Dead is still going on. I that was Walking Dead is another one I was late to the party, but I legit got to season 4 or 5 before. And I mean, I was watching it like every other day, every day. That was like all I was watching, and it gets
Shit, you were right. I did not know The Walking Dead was still going on. I just looked it up. Yep.
yeah, like
The next
it's
episode airs
characters
on November 6th. I did not know that this
characters
thing was
are
still happening.
characters are, you know, quote unquote dying off so the actors can go do other stuff because I mean and like my wife said she had watched more of it than I had. She watched up to the villain Negan being introduced and I already know what happens, but it just I haven't watched everything to get up to that and just it it's one of those it kind of falls into a bad pattern of oh we found a place we can build ourselves a little fortress and live our best life and then either another group comes along or some sort of zombie thing happens that they have to then fight their way out and move on and
Oh my
it's
god,
like
dude.
yeah but what do you expect like
The
that's kind of what that would be like if something like that were to happen so
The Walking Dead aired its first episode in the middle of our freshman semester in college.
oh my god.
October
Oh yeah, and
31st, 2010. Either we're
we're
old or this show has lasted way too long. And we're not old.
yeah yeah
All right. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. So I think the only answer that has a shot, like I said, is The Last of Us. That is my first and final answer.
yep I'll definitely agree.
All right, let's jump into the show proper. Short, not short, light news week for you. Not a whole lot of huge things to talk about, but there is some things that we want to talk about. Some decent amount of PlayStation news, a new game announcement, and a new studio being built over there at PlayStation to work on what is hopefully an Uncharted game, but we'll talk about all that in a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, this is the XP Podcast, our weekly video game and pop culture news podcast, where DJ and myself sit down with y'all and talk about all the news stories and happenings inside and out of the video game world. We post a new episode each and every week. Well, most weeks we've been running into some technical hiccups here and there, but good news is you get to listen to it whenever you want because it never goes away. You can find us on most of the popular podcasting services, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on the XP Podcast, please support us on a Patreon where you get to be a part of our weekly discussions and give us your opinions on everything we talk about and everything we don't. You'll also be able to find all of our uploads there. Um, along with any exclusive episodes we may post. Links for that, as always, are in the description down below, or you can simply go to patreon.com and search Experience Points spelled capital X, capital P, ERIENCE, capital P, OINT. However, don't worry if you don't have any money to send our way. We understand what's going on out there in the world, but we still love and appreciate you for being a part, for listening, and being a part of what is hopefully a growing community. As always, you can also go over to our YouTube channel where you can get this show and all of our shows in video format. If you do, please don't forget to give us a like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you can be aware of everything we post when we decide to post it. With all that out of the way, folks, let's get into this week's show. In our point of the show, also known as Pots, we will bring you my mini review for New Tales from the Borderlands. I have finished it, and our initial impression / review for the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign so far. In Around the Point this week on news segments, we have our second installment of LTR, or Let's Talk Reviews, where we go through the reviews of some of the biggest games releasing and give you our impressions / reactions to the scores and some of the things your most trusted reviewers are saying about the game. Then in the news, we talk about PlayStation creating a new studio for the next AAA experience. Xbox is also getting ready to get more expensive, and the death of physical media has finally begun, but so much more. Before we get to all that, though, it's time for what is and forever will be What You've Been Doing, where we catch up on all things pop culture that we've been doing, whether that be gaming, TV shows, movies, books, or comics. It doesn't matter to us, because we like it all and love to talk about it. Now, for me, I don't have much to say because everything that I've been playing is in our point of the show, but DJ does have some things that he needs to talk about, so I'll just get mine out of the way. I beat New Tales from the Borderlands, I beat the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign, and I will talk about that in pots. So Mr. DJ Thorkake, take it away.
Kind of same. Like I said, got a PS5. Awesome. Got the platinum and beat Astro Boy or Astro Bot, not Astro Boy. It
How
was,
amazing was that platinum experience, dude?
I mean, really good. Like for being such a basic, like basically get to know how your controller works game. Um, and we've talked about before, like with Stray and stuff. Speed runs do suck. Like have to get those for a trophy, but it was exhilarating to see is like how well did I learn to use this controller to be able to control to control the game to get the speed run part of the trophy hunt down.
Well,
Especially
it's not really
there's
a speed run, it's just the
well,
trials.
it's yeah, but it's how it's can you do 8 trials in 7 minutes? So you have to do, you know, less than a minute on all of them to get that. And um I
I,
mean, when
I
you're
I
when
didn't
you
think it was
do
that
your
hard, but
playthrough, no, it was like I was really only worried about the climbing just because of um you being doing your controller swings ahead of where you're ahead of your triggering and getting that down, and the uh the trackpad knowing I was gonna I couldn't take my time and like smoothly go so it was how fast and how good I get controlling the trackpad, which I got pretty good. I think I only slammed on the brakes the last time I did it maybe once. Other than that, I really whipped through it, and I had my control down. And yeah, that was, and to see all the PS4, like all the play, like the history of PlayStation stuff and the artifacts you collect and everything, that was wow. And like I didn't realize like they were kind of ahead of their time with the PSP, like by a lot. I mean, it has a
I mean, you
satellite.
look at, yeah, I mean, even with the Vita, PlayStation was massively ahead at the time with the Vita. The Vita is just a smaller Switch. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And they were just 5 to 6 years too early with that, and people weren't ready for it when it came out. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, they were massively ahead of the times with
Like seeing
the
those now,
Vita.
it's kind of like I want them to take another crack at it so that like much like a Switch, I can play. I mean, obviously it's going to be hard to get, squeeze down Call of Duty or Horizon or God of War into a small enough thing to port onto that, being
Oh, I mean,
handheld.
I kind of disagree.
But
They have Call of Duty Mobile. You can play that on your phone, brother.
that's true. So yeah, I feel like, and with now, I mean, the hardest part will be doing Wi-Fi, but I mean, for the PSP and the Vita already, they had basically a satellite attachment to kind of search basically through like cell towers and stuff for a signal to play online stuff. So I mean, it's and especially now, like you could throw that kind of stuff in. I mean, they have tablets you can use on a phone network. So like I feel like if Sony were to take another crack at that and give us another PSP or PS Vita Switch like device, I think it would I mean, and they're not going to because they're focusing on um moving things to VR and
Yeah, I was gonna say
kind of
they have their second console with VR,
yeah.
and
So
while as
it's
much as I loved my PSP and I loved my Vita for what it was, I want them to stick to
yeah.
VR, and I want them to keep making that the best that they possibly can. So
Yeah, and other than that, like you said, we'll get to it. The Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign. Other than like we talked about before we started, I'm second to last, penultimate
halfway through, you got
mission, and
a mission and a half, but you are ready to go ahead and give a in-depth, spoiler-free review of the game, and
yeah,
I'm gonna put a score on it for at least the single-player campaign. I feel like I'm confident in my opinions to put a score on it. So you can if you want. I don't
yeah,
really
I will.
care. So, but I want to circle back around before we move on to that. To Astrobot because I haven't really got a chance to talk about it too much on the podcast episodes. It's a game I played before we started doing the podcast. I talked about it a little bit when Logan hopped on it. Maybe no, because I guess that was also before. I don't know when it happened, but man, let me tell you what. I can. Okay, let me back up. I have loved platinuming a lot of PlayStation games. Ghost of Tsushima was an incredible platinum game. Um, Horizon Forbidden West earlier this year had a lot of fun platinuming that. Stray, eventually I will get that speed run done. I keep getting distracted with things. It's an hour and a half of my life that I just don't seem to be able to fit in anywhere, but I'm not giving up on it. So I've enjoyed a lot of platinum runs, but Astrobot is easily at the top 5, top 3 of that list of most enjoyable platinums I've ever had, just based off of what the game is and my fandom with PlayStation and my history with PlayStation, and just me getting to relive that at the same time, you know, getting to experience this brand new, hyper powerful console for the first time. And I think everything just came together, at least for me in my life at that point in time. The excitement of getting the PS5 day one, putting in a disc and sitting down and starting to play Astro and just realizing, excuse me, how absolutely incredible it is as not just a regular game, but it's a free pack-in game with every PlayStation 5. And that just blows my mind. Like Logan and I have talked about time and time again. I'm like, I would say there's only one other game that can challenge this for the best pack-in game of all time, and that is Wii Sports. And that's a very different style of game, obviously, but in terms of significance, Wii Sports is probably, if not definitely, much more significant in terms of video game history. But in terms of quality, I think Astrobot's the best out there. I think
I think I
Astrobot,
would have to agree.
yeah, there's no challenge. In terms of cultural significance, Wii Sports is miles and miles ahead just because of what it means to people, and me in particular. But the 6 or 7, however many hours it was for me to platinum this game was an experience that I'll never forget. And mind you, this is coming off a time where when I got my PlayStation, I had Spider-Man Miles Morales and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but that's a different story. And I had taken the entire week off from work just to play my new PS5. And the first game I played, and the first game I beat, and the first game I platinumed was Astrobot because I just loved it, man. So those of you out there, when you get a PS5, maybe you don't care about some of the other stuff, but please do yourself a favor. download Astrobot, enjoy yourself for 5 to 6 hours, enjoy the history of PlayStation, enjoy just a really well-made 3D platformer, in my opinion.
Yep.
All right.
Same.
Spiel over. Let's get into pots. This is the point of the show. This is also a recurring thing on the show where we like to separate this from the rest of the show. We usually use this for like some of our reviews or some of our more in-depth topics. We've done some spoiler cast on here. We've done some a lot of movie reviews during this segment, but this time we're just going to give you 2 mini reviews, one of them from my perspective, one of them from both of our perspectives. So without further ado, let's jump into Pointing the Show, also known as Pots, starting with my mini review from New Tales from the Borderlands. This is a game I was fairly excited for, loving Tales from the Borderlands when it first came out all those years ago. I don't know, 2017, 2018, I don't remember when it came out, but DJ, you know I was very excited about this game. Well, okay, let me back up. Not very excited. I was excited about this game. I like these kind of just strictly narrative-heavy, choose-your-own-response types games. And you knew how excited I was. And I'm just going to jump out.
You're pretty excited.
I'm just going to jump out and give my score and then talk about why I settled on this score as it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, New Tales from the Borderlands, for those of you that don't know, I guess, is the sequel from Tales from the Borderlands, originally made by Telltale. This one was made by Gearbox Software. It is, like I said, a strictly narrative game with very little interaction in terms of like regular gameplay. Your interaction is choosing what to say, creating these characters, molding these characters into who you want to be, and that is pretty much the entire game. And right off the bat, I'm going to give New Tales from the Borderlands a 6 out of 10. Now, before I delve into it, I want people to know out there, in our scale, that is an above-average game. So, it is not a horrible game. I know a lot of people say, here, 6 out of 10, and they're like, ooh, that's bad. For us, for me in particular, a 6 out of 10, we rank it as above average. So, it is a little bit better than just a blah game. This has some good things in it, some good storytelling, quite a bit of humor that really hits, but the reason I settled on a 6 and not a 7, which I would call a good game, is because the second half of the game, so let's go with episodes 4, 5, and maybe half of 3, it just brings this whole entire experience to an absolute halt. The writing goes downhill, the narrative and storytelling go downhill, and it just becomes muddled in about 4 to 5 hours of randomly doing things and going places. The best example I can give that I can liken this experience to, especially episode 4, is It Chapter 2. DJ, have you ever seen It Chapter 2?
Yep.
All right, my big complaint about that is you had a lot of narrative momentum in that movie, and then when the characters split off, they go through and tell each character's individual story and experience, and I thought it dragged the overall movie to an absolute halt and standstill, especially with the narrative momentum. And by the time we got to the end, I was like, oh my god, we've been at this for 2.5 hours, and half of it was no forward momentum, just us going through a story, going back, going through the next story, going back, going through the next story, and so on and so forth for all the characters. And that is the exact liken to of what happens with New Tales from the Borderlands. You have some decent narrative progression. Episode 1 and 2, I think, are actually pretty darn good. Not as good as Tales from the Borderlands, the original, but good characters introduced, good story momentum, has some decent surprises throughout the first 2 episodes and what they're doing and how they go about doing that. Good humor. Episode 3 started to show some cracks here and there, and I started to think, I was like, oh, okay, some of the writing isn't as solid as it was in the first couple episodes, I guess chapters, if you want to call them. And then episode 4, yeah, all your characters split off, and you play through each one slowly, and it just grinds everything to the halt. And then episode 5 comes through, and for some reason, it's like 3.5 hours, episode 5, where the other ones were 1.5 to 2 hours. So it was clear to me that they got to that point and they said, ah, dang, we got to finish this somehow, guys. And just kind of rushed to the ending and rushed to a conclusion that, in my opinion, wasn't really all that satisfying and didn't really have any sort of huge impact on Borderlands world as a whole, and obviously the characters that you play as. Like, there is, I guess, some development within the characters, but by the time I got to the end of it, I was tired of the writing. The humor wasn't hitting for me, and I just wanted the experience to be done. Um, there is a platinum trophy that is technically obtainable and achievable, but I don't foresee myself in the near future sitting back down and having to do the things and go through some of the chapters and episodes that I have to go through again. Because in the stupidest decision of all time, you can't skip any cutscenes. And
Oh,
the cutscenes are the entirety of this episode. So, say I need to go back and replay chapter 4 because I missed a collectible or something. I have to sit through every single cutscene, which again is the entirety of the game, essentially 90% of the game, if I want to get back to a point. Dumb design decision, really makes me not want to go for it, but overall fairly let down by this experience, I will say out there. Like I said, it does have something for you if those of you out there listening are excited about new Tales from the Borderlands or excited about more in that universe. It does have some good things. The robot Louis I've talked about on the last 2 episodes is absolutely hysterical and easily the best part of the game. But unfortunately, him being a side character, as the game moves on, you get less and less of him and more of these 3 characters that at first seem pretty unique and much different than your usual Borderlands characters, but by the end of the game, just become annoying, and I didn't want to talk to him, and I didn't care about him at all. What do you got, man? What do you think?
yeah, that's one I haven't played. I know you were hyped for it. Yeah, what you're saying just that just seems like such a big oversight to not allow any sort of cutscene skip. Um, Especially like I understand maybe having it set up so that you can't skip scenes first playthrough, but when you're going back to hunt for trophies, like I've had games where you can't skip a cutscene, but once you've played through or if you've died on a level or the game will recognize it's your second playthrough, so it won't make you sit through the cutscenes again. And that just seems I don't want to say huge oversight, but an oversight nonetheless. That's like what were you guys doing or thinking or just like and like you said too, um the kind of wandering through a story because it's almost like they didn't know quite how they wanted to end it is just like at some point you gotta like pull the team together and go, okay, hey, let's pick this one ending and roll with it and just go instead of like kind of exploring a few things and then going. It just yeah, that's annoying too. So
It did feel very wandery. I like that terminology. It definitely felt, especially through chapters or episode 3 and 4, very wandering of a story. Because like in the first 2 episodes, like I said, episode 1 sets up your characters, sets up the world, sets up your mission, and then episode 2 actually kind of um what do I want to say? It like it goes against the grain and like you actually achieve what you originally set out to do in the second episode, which I was not ready for. I thought the whole game was going to be set around that. And then the rest of the game is really set about what happens after you get the MacGuffin of the story and how your characters deal with that and everything. And while from a concept standpoint, conceptually, that sounds really cool and kind of goes against the grain a little bit of how you usually tell this sort of story, especially in the Borderlands universe. But yeah, that second half or second 2/3 or whatever you want to say, said 3, 4, and then 5 by the time you get to the end, really just did feel kind of wandery. It felt like the story had already been wrapped up in a way. You know, now that I'm talking, it feels very, very akin to the MCU right now, where episodes 1 and 2 was the Infinity Saga, and then 3 and 4 were phase 4, where it was like, where is this going? What are we doing? I feel like this is already over. I feel like the MCU ended. You know, I feel like we achieved what we needed to achieve. We had our ending, and now we're just watching stuff play out. Um, that's very good. I like that. I'm gonna liken it to the MCU right now as a whole.
Yeah,
This game,
and
so
definitely like it seems like they're gonna start figuring out like it like I to go back to that kind of wandering type thing. It's almost like they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do, and they just had to blurt out a whole bunch of characters and storylines. And now with the Ant-Man 3 trailer, we kind of see the direction we're going, but it's like it feels like we wasted I won't say 3 or 4 shows. Yeah, I think we got 5 shows. So it seems like we wasted 3 or 4 shows, a handful of movies on just blurting out a bunch of properties and characters to then set up for what Phase 5 is going to be. And it's kind of like, I feel like we wasted our time, guys. Like we could have done something else. But I mean, I don't want to keep dragging on the MCU because I feel like we do that enough every episode. So
yeah. So we are gonna award Um, well, I'm gonna award, I guess, New Tales from the Borderlands a silver trophy in a review scale. You get that from being above average to anywhere to good. But this is on the lower tier of a silver. I was thinking of going 5.5, which put it in the bronze tier to just go average to slightly below average. But I do think there's enough here and enough decent writing to garner my 6 score. That's where I settled. That's where I'm gonna put it at. But at the end of the day, it was just a pretty big letdown for me overall, and I just didn't think it got I got from it what I wanted. I was bored, and that's not a good sign in a 10-hour game that I was bored through half of it. Uh, and I think the weirdest inclusion is part of the charm of playing these games is you do get to choose your reactions and choose how your characters say things and what they say, and you really do have a sense that you're building your character the way you want to play them. Like in the Batman Telltale games, you really could build a Bruce Wayne that was either a complete and utter dickhead or a relatively nice guy that really wanted to fix the mistakes that he's made in the past, fix the mistakes of his parents, and move forward with his life. And in this game, you can still do that, but if you want to go for the trophies, they introduced this whole thing called a skateboard rating, which in layman's terms is how well you work together, which forces you to essentially always pick the nice answer, the good answer, the camaraderie, the fist bumping answer. And it was just a weird inclusion, a weird design decision, and I just didn't like it. But that's all I really have to say in depth about New Tales from the Borderlands. A pretty big letdown. 6 out of 10 is what I'm going to give the game. Slightly above average. And yeah, unfortunate, but I wanted to be real and I wanted to be truthful and I wanted to let people know that I don't always score games 8 and 9s out of 10s. There are sometimes I'm disappointed by what I play. So, but anything else? Any reaction you have to that?
not for that one.
All right. Well, now let's get into the big one, ladies and gentlemen. Our second parts of the episode is our Call of Duty Modern Warfare campaign mini review and impressions of what we've played. So, like I said, I beat the campaign. DJ has essentially beat the campaign if it wasn't for some technical hiccups. So, let's come right off the bat. What score are you going to give the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign and a short description of why? We'll get into more later.
Boy, it's I was really thinking about it, kind of going through everything that we score off of. Um, I think I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Not it's better than a 7, but I think it's not quite an 8. Like, and overall why, like, it played very smooth. The story wasn't convoluted. It wasn't I feel like people were very worried. They were literally going to alter the basically just take the version 1 of the Modern Warfare storyline, and they were just going to heavily regurgitate it to us. And I mean, there are a lot of parallels um in what happens in that old series versus this current one. But and some I will say it, this one had fanfare missions. Um
Like half of them are fanfare
yeah,
missions.
but
I will say right off the bat.
nonetheless,
So let me cut in real quick. I will say so I don't have to repeat myself too much. I'm
yep.
also giving the campaign a 7.5. I bounced around between 7 or 7.5, but I don't think it's a 7, and I don't think it's an 8. So there you go, 7.5. You know, just pushing on great, but there's too many things here that I was let down by or just became a nuisance slash annoyance in some of the design decisions and how they went about creating this campaign that I don't think it's a great Call of Duty campaign, but I do think it is a good Call of Duty campaign.
It's I won't I'll give it just as good, maybe a little better than the previous one. Like I said, a lot of fanfare in this one for everyone that's played all of the Modern Warfare series, like 2019 and the Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3, which is Call of Duty like 4, 6, 8, or something like that. Uh there have been much better campaigns. Um the first two Black Ops campaigns are up there for me. The original Modern Warfare 2, I think, is still one of my favorite campaigns ever. Um, but this is, I won't say it's better than those, but it's up there. I mean, we've had some real dud campaigns. We've had games that didn't even come with a campaign. So, um, yeah, the story was, it made sense. It seemed something that could, honestly happen in the real world. Um, um, as far as all the storytelling, the arc that takes place, seems very plausible. Um, the mission structures were halfway decent. Especially, I mean, there was a few hiccups where like they ask you a question and it's like, well, I can't hear what this person's saying for me to give you an answer to that yet, but they only give you a limited time to answer. So it's like, mm,
Well, see,
um,
I actually like that little addition. That kind of
oh,
like,
I like that. It's
yeah,
just,
the like choosable banter between, especially
yeah,
in
the
the
ones
alone
between,
mission when you're
yes,
Soap and you're talking to Ghost and you get to kind of talk to him in a more real way outside of like the soldier bravado talk. You get to talk to him in like a
yeah,
more human aspect, and I actually really that's one of my favorite new additions, and I thought they could have been used a lot
yes.
more throughout the
I
campaign.
I totally thought there could have been much more. Like, and two, there's a mission with Gaz and Price, where, and I think Laswell is listening in. And there's a little bit of banter.
Well, yeah, the all get it up mission.
Yep,
Recon by fire.
yeah. I feel like there could have been a little bit more of that. I mean, obviously, they're trying to lay low, be hidden, undetectable, but there could have been a little more banter between everyone. Um, same with, I mean, Alone. I mean, you're literally sneaking through Los Alamos, so it's like you can't have too much, but they when they squeeze it in, it's pretty good. And the I thought the story arc, obviously I haven't gotten to probably what's going to be the most satisfying part of it, but just overall, and there were missions that could have gone better. Uh I felt like there's a mission involving El Sinombre. Um I felt like they could have done more with um kind of not that there was any wokeness to this game other than them saying Laswell had a wife, which it's like that kind of stuff doesn't bother me, and it's like, hey, whatever. Um, I feel like they could have really, if they wanted to, I didn't like try to go about doing it, but they could have thrown their shade at people being in bed with the cartels, but not wanting everyone to know they're in bed with cartels. Um, and they didn't, at least as far as I got. I really didn't pay attention to some of the kind of background characters in that mission, but overall, I thought it was good. Like we've talked about, um, was it worth the money I paid for it? Now, obviously, when you're buying Call of Duty, you're not paying for it. You're paying for the multiplayer. But I like you and me like to play through the campaign, so you kind of understand the maps that are being used in the multiplayer. Um, which not being able to complete that because of my technical issues and what going into multiplayer, there were some maps that I was just like, why is this a map? So, which I'm assuming in in the last mission or two that I have left, I will hopefully that'll make more sense. But I think if I were to pay, you know, 30 $40 for just the campaign, it would be worth it. Paying the full 70 now the games are up to. Like I said, with this one, you're getting the multiplayer also. Warzone 2 when it comes out is gonna be free and separate, so that's nice. But um, would I have paid 70 just for this campaign? If they would have obviously, I feel like if you're paying just for a campaign, there'd be a lot more to it and be way more in depth. But I if you're gonna split your cost, say 35 for the campaign, 35 for the multiplayer, I think I think it's worth it. Like this overall was pretty good. Um, I don't know what level you're going. I'm going through on hardened, which now because of the realistic setting, it's the literal middle of the road kind of really test your skills. And if you run and gun, you're not going to be super like you're going to die if you like to run and gun or you just like to blow through missions unless they're stealth missions. Like you will die and it will take you multiple tries. So I like playing on hardened.
Yeah, I'm playing through on just a regular difficulty. Because I do plan on trying to go back through and get the platinum, and that requires a veteran or a realistic playthrough. And
Mhm.
so I just wanted to experience the story. I just wanted to get through it because I knew I had to make
Yeah.
this episode. So I just played through it on normal. And by the way, this game is not easy. The game is
No, it's
actually
not.
fairly hard. I remember one point in the final mission, um, I walked around a corner and there was a guy there. And before I could even ADS, he just two pumped me with a shotgun. Boom, boom, dead. I was like, oh, all right,
Yeah.
sweet. And that happens a lot.
There's
Let me
a
get
few
through my
missions sweeping
positives.
with shotguns and
Yeah, let me
we're
get
like,
through my
oh shit.
positives real quick. So my positives on the campaign are it looks beautiful, it plays beautiful, the narrative is well told, the characters are well realized. You really get an attachment to Task Force 141. Now I can't really speak to what it's like to play this game from a new player's perspective because I have the standpoint and the memories of the first Task Force 141, so I know these characters. And the game kind of not really straddles a line. They kind of blur the lines of do these guys know each other? Did the first Modern Warfare trilogy exist in a way? Because, like, you introduced the Ghost and all that, and you introduce the soap in this, and like Price reacts to them as like, oh hey, this is a coming back together. But it's clearly not. It's clearly a new story and all that, or a new timeline, as opposed to the original Modern Warfare trilogy. So they don't really give you any background on how these guys know each other so well. And I thought that was a little weird from a new player's perspective. Not for someone like you and I, or even Logan, I'll include him in this, who obviously we know these characters, we know what they are, so them knowing and understanding each other isn't as big as a narrative hiccup as, maybe someone who's brand new, who's like, how do these guys know each other so intimately outside of just being military personnel. But so I thought that was really the only hiccup in the narrative that I had. Other than that, like I said, it's beautiful, it plays well, it's well realized. The twist is stupidly predictable. Like, I saw it
Yeah.
coming 8 miles away. I saw it coming
I'm just
in
glad it
mission
was much
5.
different. I'm just glad it was much different than kind of the, because it's
Well, it was,
kind
but
of
it
this.
wasn't at the same time. Like, again, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where they wanted to be different, but they didn't want to be too different. It felt like they were trying to satisfy everybody with this campaign. Um, and I don't want to get into my negatives too heavily right now. I still want to try to talk about some of the positives, but I guess this really did feel, unfortunately, like a best hits of Call of Duty campaigns
Mhm.
instead of being its own individual thing. Um, but real quick, I guess my last positive that kind of transitions into being a negative is this is a much different campaign than we used to. This is very much like a spy thriller. I would say half, if not over half, of these missions are really based in stealth gameplay, quietly moving around, taking out targets. I don't even remember one of these where you were a part of a big battle, which was always a standpoint or a set piece of other Call of Duty campaigns. Think back to, if you want to just compare this to the original MW2, the very first mission, you're in a huge battle in the streets of some third world country. I don't remember which one it was, but
Near Middle East somewhere.
yeah, Middle
But yeah,
East.
you take part in an actual, like, oh, you're in a war zone.
Yeah,
And this
it,
like, I don't think there's kind of a mission where you're in one, but it's not nowhere near like the first game, the first Modern Warfare for this trilogy of them. Um, you are in a bit of a war zone fighting with rebels, but in this one, like, you meet up with that band of rebels again, but it's nothing like in the first game or in the first series. Like you're saying, this is a very you're I think I think it's much more in the old series. You are a army ranger for part of it, so you are in that action as, I believe it's Roach. But in these, like, your task force 141, and those vaqueros, which are basically black ops, Navy SEAL, like, they're that type of squad. So they're not in, like, purposeful combat at all times. They are trying to sneak around and get in, get out, get what we needed, kill a few people if we have to type missions. So, like, it does I do hope it brings about us having more of that, um boots on the ground, kind of ground war type fight in the next game. I just it like you're saying, it did leave us kind of wanting something like that in this game, and we we got snippets of it, but not like a all out ground war scene like you get that we got in the first series.
yeah. All right, let's get into my negatives here. And this is probably going to be a longer section. It's always longer and more in depth when you talk about the negatives of a game than the positives of the game, mostly. But my biggest takeaway from this campaign and how it was structured is they have really bad pacing in some of these missions, and that's my biggest complaint. Some of these missions introduce some cool new mechanics or a cool setting or an interesting idea that for the first 10 or 15 minutes of it, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool and interesting. And then the mission goes on for 40 to 50 minutes. There's one of them that took me over an hour to beat, and I'm like, an hour in a Call of Duty campaign mission? And then with the pacing, there's some of these, like, that's less than 3 minutes. And it's like, huh, you maybe could have paced some of this out. My biggest example of what I'm talking about happens twice. And they are Recount by Fire, the all gillied up mission, and the Alone mission. Both of those I thought were really, really cool for the first half of it. And then I realized that I'm only halfway done. Let me start by Recon by Fire, all gillied up mission, when you have to take out the enemies surrounding the base and then infiltrate the base and take out the buildings and clear these buildings. I thought that whole first section was really cool, and I enjoyed it. Getting to infiltrate and choose the way that I infiltrate the building and how I go about doing it. I'm like, oh, this is really cool and really fun. I thought it was weird that I was doing it by myself. I don't know why. um, Price was just like, no, I got to stand back. Like he could have just
Yeah,
been there with me.
he's
That
like,
was
I'm
that was
just gonna
dumb,
sit
but
back and although for my playthrough, I mishandled some of my shots in the beginning of that mission where you're picking people off before you go down. I I did kind of shoot like ass. Like we still got all the kills, but just to try to line this up so you can take two people at once. Okay, well we're up here. I can't really move too much to try to make two people line up to drop both. So like not that you're asking for the impossible, but you're asking for some difficult shit and like I'm not a real black ops dude. Like I don't really know how I could maneuver up here 300 meters away to to a point where I'm going to be able to take out two guys with one bullet. Um
I did all that shit, man. There was a trophy for not setting off an alarm the entire campaign, so I made sure that I ran to the other side of the screen to get that shot lined up.
yeah.
So, but then, like I said, that's all fine and dandy, and I was really enjoying it. Then you get done with that first section, and then they say, hey, there's a whole nother thing. There's a second part of this that you got
Yeah.
to do, and you got to go through and do it again. And I'm like, really? You couldn't just do this in a different way to have. It was great. That whole 30 or so minutes of taking the guys out and infiltrating, that was awesome. And then it dawned on me, well, the game revealed to me that I have to do everything again, beat by beat. Sneak up, take the guys out, approach the base for infiltration. A group of people come out in the exact same cars and vehicles, sneak by those vehicles, then infiltrate the base, then go to the conclusion. So they set up a mission where you do the exact same thing back to back with no differences other than setting. And I was like,
And
really?
And
That's what you did?
the second set of guys were like your first set of guys that come up in a truck are cartel, and the second set are the up armored guys. And that was where we were talking before we started, where I must have died like 10 times because the AI was just wigging out and was like they knew where I was and like they would all walk by me and I wouldn't even move yet. I because I always wait for them to get a little bit further and they wouldn't get to that a little bit further. They would just be like, "Huh. Oh, there he is." And they would shoot me. And it's like, "I haven't moved. You all walked by me and didn't see me. Like I should be clear to run and have missed you guys." But so that got very annoying. So it got to a point where I was just like I was over it. I ended up instead of staying stealth and try to sneak by everyone, I eventually was like, "All right, fuck it." They were all get out of their trucks and it was I triple tapped and double tapped and literally killed all 10 or 15 guys in like 6 or 7 shots. Like I was like, I'm done with this shit. Let's move on.
Yeah, and then the second mission I was talking about, Alone, I think introduces in my opinion, a really cool idea or mechanic for a mission. You're hurt, you're wounded, you have no weapons, no nothing, and you gotta get through to the church is where you're trying to go, but you gotta get to point X, and you gotta like scavenge and craft weapons and find your way through these things. It's very akin to like something like The Last of Us or some sort of survival horror game where you're underpowered, you're outgunned in everything you run into, and you have to just find your way and grind your way through. And again, I thought it was a really cool idea for the first 20 or so minutes, and then it just drags. That mission drags on and on
Mhm.
and on, and I'm like, dude, I'm still doing this. Now, I did make it hard on myself a little bit. There is a trophy for going through that entire mission without firing a single bullet, which I did get that trophy. So I did get through the entire mission without shooting anybody, which I had to cheese some game mechanics to get through the last couple arenas with that. But I mean, even if I allowed myself to shoot, you have a very limited amount of weaponry and bullets, and I don't think it really would have changed my opinion too much and all that. But that happens quite a few times. What we're talking about is they introduce some cool ideas, and then the mission just drags and drags and drags on, and it's just weird pacing. You know, I don't like the way they did it. And like I said, overall, I was let down by maybe a third of the missions that we had here. But again, most of it is good. Most of it is enjoyable. I did have a fun time, especially there's some standouts. Nothing akin to like the All Gillied Up or some of these other Call of Duty campaign missions that are really like the standout moments. My personal opinion, the best one here is Darkwater. I thought Darkwater was fantastic when you're on the oil rig and the boat. I thought that was a really well designed mission, interesting idea with the shifting crates when you're on the boat and kind of the physics gameplay
Oh,
at work there.
yeah, and because
Yeah,
you could not really sit in camp and poke guys because unless you were doing it from certain positions, like eventually you were going to get smashed by a shipping container and have to start over from either the beginning or from a certain checkpoint. And it got to a point where it's like I would keep forgetting that's going to happen and move to a specific point, pick off a couple guys, and then right as I start moving, I get smashed by a shipping container. It's like, oh god damn it! Like I kept forgetting that was like a part of it because it's like you even think like, oh, I'm in a safe spot right now, I'll be fine, and then come to find out like, nope, I'm still in the line of fire here, and you would be like you would get crushed and have to, like I said, start from a checkpoint to start over. It's like, man, like you think you're in a safe spot from getting shot at, but now you have to pay attention to the shifting um containers of whatever that are just sliding loose on the deck of this pretend like shipping vessel.
yeah. Like I said, there are quite a few standout moments. Said I think Darkwater, like I was just saying, is easily my favorite mission in this whole game. But a lot of times it feels like, they are doing a best of hits for Call of Duty campaigns, and especially like, when you got the AC 130 mission that's in here, but it's been done better before. I thought this one again dragged on too long. I was in that fucking airplane for like, it felt like 18, 20 minutes. I was just flying circles around this small town, and I'm like, dude, I'm bored. I'm in an AC 130 and I'm bored out of my mind. And I think a lot of the times that they try to reference or redo some of the better missions from Call of Duty history, it just feels like it's done in a worse way. It feels like, this is the B team creating a best of soundtrack. It is the, what am I saying? It is the kids bop to the actual song, version of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, and then I guess my final thing is there's I can't really talk about it in depth because you haven't completed that, but in Ghost Team, the mission that you're on, there is a boss battle at the end of the mission that is just mind-bogglingly gamified in a way that Call of Duty usually avoids. They usually avoid this like just standard very gamey sort of situations, and the boss fight at the end of Ghost Team is just dumb. I hate it. Call of Duty usually doesn't do these types of encounters and engagements, and I have no clue what they were thinking putting this in there. It was a poorly conceived, poorly executed boss fight to what should have been a much more gratifying conclusion to a storyline. That's all I say about that until you get to it, in my opinion. So that's kind of my overall thoughts of the campaign. As I said, I still think it's a good campaign. It's enjoyable for a lot of the missions here, a lot of the runs. No real standout moment. Like, we're not going to be talking about any of these missions in, a year or anything like that, like we were with some of the other Call of Duty campaigns. Like, there's still missions that's all gillied up. The one where the bomb drops in original Modern Warfare. Um, there's one in Call of Duty and Modern Warfare 3 that I can't remember. Boarding the plane in Black Ops, the original. Like, all these things are just like standout missions, and there's just nothing that I found here that really took my breath away, and I was like, wow, this is super intense and exciting, and I can't believe I'm playing through that. Oh, almost forgot. My last thing that I wanted to point out in terms of game mechanics that did not go right. The driving mission in this game is fucking horrible. It is the worst attempt at replicating what another game did significantly better. In this case, Uncharted 4 blew this driving sequence out of the water. I thought this thing was poorly executed, poorly conceived. Has a cool set piece at the very beginning of the mission where you're hanging upside down from this plane. That was awesome. And then everything after that, in my personal opinion, was pretty garbage town.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same. I was like, it started off good, and then when it was literally like you, it's it wasn't even at some point like if you were good enough at driving, you could have started on that first car and never had to move on to a second one. Like,
There's a trophy for that, actually. There's a trophy for
yeah,
reaching
I didn't even look
price.
for trophies this because I was trying to get it done to kind of move on to multiplayer, and then I was like, I'll go back to the campaign at some point, even though you know that it'll be some downtime before that happens because we have literally I just got my thing this next weekend or for Monday I'll have whatchamacallit call it or not this Monday, the following Monday, God of War. So it's like it's literally gonna be multiplayer well, finish my campaign, multiplayer here and there, and then it's gonna be when I'm not doing multiplayer, I'm doing God of War. Um, and it'll be like
Oh, it's
that
not
till
even
God of
that,
War.
man. When God of War comes out, y'all ain't seeing me.
Yeah,
You guys are
like
not seeing me at all.
like it's almost gonna be because I mean playing through the multiplayer I played last night, I was top three um in every single match, at least on my team. Like it just I've been rolling good, like it feels good. I like the system. I gotta mess with some of it a little bit more, but I was rolling, having a good time. I'm already looking forward to nights of playing domination or ground war or team deathmatch or whatever with everyone, and looking forward to when Warzone 2 drops. But yeah, it'll be it'll be heavy on God of War when that comes out. Um,
Just for
and I
time
mean,
framing, I will let you know that this week I am off Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night, so we can get
okay.
on. Yeah, I think Worthy and I, not Worthy, Logan and I are already planning on. So if you want to jump on with us, you can there. But other than that, any more opinions you had? Anything else that we haven't talked about throughout this campaign that you've experienced that you wanted to point out, whether that be good or bad, before we go on with the rest of the show?
Not really. I'm good to move on. Knock some of these stories out and go see if I can actually not suck at a Pokemon tournament for once.
Hey, I spent $1,000 on a Magic deck back in the day that went 1 for 4. So join the club, I guess.
Well,
Shit was
this
so
one's
annoying.
always rougher because you're not playing all the meta decks and set pieces. This is a pre-release tournament, so it's literally I get 4 packs to try to make a viable deck out of to hopefully win a booster box of this new set. So, and I've like this last one, I didn't pull shit for cards. I made a decent deck, but it wasn't. I don't know if it would. I don't think it wouldn't have won me a tournament. There was a kid and his dad that pulled bangers of hits and would have just beat the crap out of everyone. And then the um tournament before that, the 2 pre-releases ago, coming up on 3 ago, I pull the perfect set pieces for a fire deck, and then I pull 0 other fire type cards. So it was like I had to do a dual type deck, which is good normally, but when you're limited on your cards and your strategy you can use, and it's better to have it always seems better to roll a single type on a pre-release tournament and to not get any cards that help build around my 2 big pieces really sucked. So fingers crossed that goes better today for me. But yeah, let's knock
All
out
right.
some of these stories that look
Well,
are
well, good luck in your tournament. Uh, Let me know how it all goes. Hope you win. Hope you get some money. That'd be nice, right?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move in now to Around the Point, where we go around the video game world and give you the news that you need to know about. Number one on Around the Point is our newly introduced last week topic within a topic. It is Let's Talk Reviews, or LTR for short. This is where, like I said earlier, we go through some of the bigger games releasing throughout the later half of 2022 and go in detail a little bit in our responses to some of these reviews. Starting off is Call of Duty Modern Warfare Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Mostly all these reviews are dealing with the campaign, so that's good. It lines up with what we're talking about here. Right now on OpenCritic, it has a 76 with 26 reviews. Some of the highlights here: Xbox Error gave the game an 8.5 out of 10 and had this to say: as finer an example of AAA Hollywood gaming spectacle as there ever was, full of incredible visuals and set pieces, with a ton of gameplay variety and only a few moments that fall flat. It can't help but occasionally feel to be a greatest hits collection of previous Call of Duty moments at times, despite the earnest and well-intentioned efforts to mix things up a bit, and that's okay. For fans of the series, they'll be more than satisfied. Press Start gave the game a 7 out of 10 and said, as a sequel to the Modern Warfare reboot, Modern Warfare 2 feels like both a celebration of the series' original trilogy as well as the team at its core. The party is spoiled somewhat by inconsistent pacing, technical issues, and incongruous mechanics shoehorned in from what will ultimately be the game's multiplayer suit. Through it all, the referential nods to Call of Duty of old stitched the experience together for me. And then over at IGN, they gave the campaign a 6 out of 10 and had Call of Duty shooting is once again in a prestige class of its own, which means Modern Warfare 2's campaign always manages to operate on a minimum quality bar that delivers a satisfying punch. But beyond each thunderous pull of the trigger is an underwhelming story and level designs that are too concerned with replicating the success of previous campaigns rather than embracing its own good ideas for more than a single mission apiece. In the areas it does innovate, it almost always stumbles, although there does remain some enjoyment to be taken in its monumentary flashes of inspiration. Overall, though, this is sadly a lackluster follow-up to the Modern Warfare 2019's refined take on a Call of Duty campaign, an experience that's already fading in my memory. Before we get into reacting to these reviews, I just dawned on me something that I forgot to mention in the mini review. And one of the reviewers mentioned here is an introduction of some things that the multiplayer is, and that is armored enemies, and they fucking suck. I hate the armored enemies in this game. Oh, cracking open our drinky drink over there, huh?
Yep. Sorry.
No, you good. I don't care. And so yeah, that's one thing I forgot to point out. The introduction of armored enemies in the single player campaign, as it's just bullet sponge enemies. It sucks. I don't like it, and it gets worse and worse as the game goes on. As you move toward the end, almost everything is armored
And with
enemies.
that too, so one thing, okay, so if you knew what you were doing, if you could kind of aim headshot-ish and take them out pretty quick, but it would take like a good chunk of a clip unless you had, a drum on your gun, which you only get towards the end of the game for those. But the only thing it didn't make sense is very Batman. They're bulletproof, but but you could knife them and kill them easily. So it was like you're guiding ghosts around for a mission, and it's shoot people not in armor, and it's knife the shit out of people that are in armor, and it was just like, What?" Like I get that it honestly would have taken more bullets, but if he's got a silencer or suppressor and everything, like you're telling me he can't place a headshot on that guy that's yeah, he's got a helmet on, but he still has a neck and face that you could shoot. Like you could still one tap a guy in the armor. It was weird that, and then like two, in that same mission, I thought it was good. Like there's a point where there's two guys, one in armor, one not. Well, you got to knife the guy in the armor first, and then I go to knife the guy not in armor, and that guy turns around and kills me. And it's like if he didn't hear me knife and drop the guy in the armor, and then I couldn't kill him with a knife, like it just like the one review is saying, like there is inconsistencies that like that was just like it made no sense whatsoever.
For those of you out there that maybe want to comment on it, I do have a criticism of the final mission, but I didn't want to point any of that out to DJ. It was a very eye-rolly part of the final mission where I was like, really, I have to do this? But we'll talk about that on the next episode when DJ has completed the campaign. But other than that, what do you think about some of these reviews? What people are saying? It seems to line up fairly decently with what we were talking about. You know, granted, some people give it a better score than I would, but it seems to.
It
I don't
seems
want to toot
like,
my own horn or our own horn, but it seems like we kind of feel like the way that most people feel like, at least.
yeah, and it just seems that some people were n- not necessarily happy or stoked that they went about doing it this way, but they weren't upset that they did this way and gave it a higher score. And then there were some that they were okay with it, but they were upset that they didn't go do that and then go above and beyond, and kind of shed on it a bit. Now, I will say we I feel as though we were on par with what these reviews were, and we kind of split the difference where we liked some of the stuff that was done. We same thing, the pacing. I know I had a buddy at work tell me that the alone mission is very akin to how the game Rust works on PC. Um, and like we talked about before with like predictions or hopes for this, having more missions where you're bust in and clear a building room by room, because that was something very enjoyable from the reboot of Modern Warfare, and that's literally in like the first episode, the first mission, and then that's kind of it. Um, I mean there's flashes of it in others, but yeah, I think we were kind of spot on, and we split the difference of, like they said, it's very greatest hits. The like you said, I kind of tiptoed on it that there are pacing issues, but overall it was decent. I enjoyed it. You know, kind of in and out, done. It was good.
Yeah, I think there are actually pretty massive pacing issues, and one of the reasons I say that is what happens. One of the things that happens in the final mission, it's just so eye rolling. Like, really, I have to do this at this point in time in the game. Um, and I really didn't like it. It didn't, take away from the grander scale of a whole, but it really was like, why am I doing this? Why are you making me do this? And I'll be interested to see how you react to it. But yeah, overall, I'm fairly happy with not just my opinion. Not that I need justification for my opinions, but it feels like, I wasn't wrong in what I was feeling, I guess, and I guess that's good in some way, shape, or form. So, all right, anything else you have to say about the reviews?
No, just that I hope it gets a little bit higher because I have this for the fantasy league.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of fantasy league, the next game took a turn that um I guess it doesn't pertain to the fantasy league, and it pertains to the Open Critics battle, of which I'll update you on the scores here in a minute. But Bayonetta 3 came out, the long-awaited sequel to, well, Bayonetta 2 from Platinum Games. It started at an 89 on Open Critic, which was great for DJ. That means he got a bullseye, and he got 2 more additive points to his total. But unfortunately, it dropped to an 88, which means you and I both got 5 points, so you ain't catching up to me
Yeah.
ever. So, ladies and gentlemen, what people had to say out there, Nintendo Life gave Bayonetta 3 a 10 out of 10 and says, Bayonetta 3 cranks up the chaos, improves the combat, polishes the level design, and adds a ton of new mechanics to the mix, making for the very best entry in this storied series to date. Platinum Games has absolutely nailed it this time around, carefully layering on more ways to engage enemies, piling on the over-the-top gameplay sequences, and giving us multiple protagonists without upsetting the balance of what makes these games among the very best examples of their genre. With excellent performance in docked and handheld mode, incredible visuals, non-stop action, and a hugely replayable campaign that's a joy from start to finish, this really is a huge celebration of everything we love about Bayonetta, an action all-timer and one of the biggest highlights of 2022 on Switch or any platform. Game Informer gave the game an 8.3 out of 10 and said Bayonetta 3, for the vast majority of its runtime, is an absolute blast. It's bombastic, over the top, and extravagant for the sake of extravagance, leaving ruins literally in its wake. I'm already going back through each level trying to better scores, and I have no immediate plans of stopping. I may be hesitant about the series' future, but at present, this is the best Bayonetta has ever been. Games Radar Plus on the low end gave the game a 7 out of 10 and says, when the witch takes charge, this demonic fighter is better than ever. After 8 long years, Platinum Games has developed a sequel which successfully celebrates this series, although it does have problems with pacing and a split focus. So, this isn't really a game. Well, I like character action games. I don't really think you or anybody else on this podcast likes character action games as much. But what do you think about some of the reviews here, the reaction, and then also, how it affects some of the back end things we're doing here?
Yeah, this is one of those, it's here nor there for me. Wish it would have stayed. I part of me wonders if it got, I mean, it didn't drop a whole lot. It literally dropped like what, a point to take me off the bullseye. Um, I was a little worried it was going to drop even more with the kind of supposed controversy of them not paying the original voice actor wanted even more money or didn't get the money she asked for, so she dropped out of it. And there was some reports about some shady shit from that, but then it sounds like her words got twisted and
Well, no,
they
she just lied.
immediately
They didn't
kind
get twisted. She just straight up
yeah,
lied and hid the truth. Granted, whatever you
yeah,
think about the final number, if you know the story out there, that's besides the point. She minced her words and presented a narrative that just simply wasn't true. So people have
yeah,
turned to kind of hating her. But yeah, so it dropped from 89 to 88, which gave us both an equal split because you predicted 89, I predicted 87, so it gave us an equal split. Logan predicted 83, so he's at the low end of that. But an update on our scores for the prediction battle. Things are kind of separating. Things were very close there for a while, but I have opened up a 9-point lead on you, 58 to 49, and you have a 6-point lead on Logan, 49 to 43. So things are opening up a little bit as we get deeper into the games. Still have 5 or 6 games to come out. So okay, never mind. I can't count at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We still have 10 games to come out. Never mind, I can't count. But we'll see. We'll see how it all ends up. We'll be back at the end of the year to let you guys know how everything shaped out in the Fantasy Critic and the Open Critics battle thing. But outside of that, I'm very glad this game scored that well. I'm even more glad it got an 88 than an 89. But I'm glad to see Platinum Games make a comeback after what can only be described as the worst attempt of all time in Babylon's Fall. But like I said a couple episodes ago, that is a very Platinum-ass thing to do. Platinum makes a crappy game, then comes back with an amazing game. And I guess good on them. It keeps them making games. It keeps them in business. But I'm very happy to overall see Bayonetta's 3 score good because it's been long awaited and long time coming. I will have to say though that I was watching some of the reviews and everything, and I was like, man, Nintendo needs to come out with a new console, dude. The Switch is just so underpowered. Like, you really have this feel that Platinum wanted to stretch their legs with their creativity, their level design, their visuals, but they just couldn't do it. They had to create an aesthetic and an artwork that worked within the framework of the Nintendo Switch and what it could muster on screen.
and
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 it
that's
just,
something that we've kind of talked about with these last handful of Pokemon games where they're trying to make Pokemon a console game seem more like a console game, but it's stuck fitting the mold of that handheld, especially with the Switch, because like
well,
they've done away with their handheld.
people don't realize when the Switch came out, the Tegra chip that's inside of it was already 2 years old. So these games, modern AAA games, are running on a mobile chipset that is now 8 years old. And it's like, all right, guys, come on. We need something else here. We need a new
And,
iteration. We need something.
and like cool, they stepped away from like it's a unique that they took. Not only they took their console and their handheld division, instead of having like PlayStation, like we talked about earlier, try to do two separate, like you had a handheld console, you had a a console, which Nintendo's been doing since day one. Like they had the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, GameCube, Wii. They had Game Boy Color, Advance SP, the DS line. Like, and then just kind of, I don't know why, but then they decided let's do away with this dual consoles and just have one that can be an at-home console or a mobile console. And that's cool, but Nintendo's always been a step behind um on console wise, it seems, for like I don't want to say aesthetically, but their console games just haven't been as appealing because they're like Nintendo is the family friendly console compared to, because I mean their main mascot is and always will be, it's Mario, whereas like we talked about, I don't know, a dozen episodes ago, like Sony has Nathan Drake, it has Kratos, it had like it's really its only kid friendly mascot is Sackboy and kind of Crash Bandicoot. Like Microsoft's is Master Chief. Like even Link is probably the most adult orientated mascot for Nintendo, and especially now, like Link and Legend of Zelda have had some dark games, and it seems like this next one. I mean, the next one is called Tears of the Kingdom, so it's like they're not like they're not trying to be kid friendly. Like they're trying to step more towards adult stuff, but the console, it seems like Nintendo is trying to stay kid orientated and kid friendly, but outside of the Mario and like the Pokemon games, the games aren't trying to really stay kid and family friendly. Like they're trying to move past that, and uh like you said, it's getting to the point where now the Switch is out of date already, and like the Wii stuck around for quite a bit, and then the Wii U was them. It seemed more like the Wii U was a beta test for a Switch, and then they just made the Switch, and then now it seems almost like they should work on another console already, and it doesn't, like the Switch doesn't seem like it. I think the Switch is going on what, 5 years?
It'll be moving in March of 2023 to its sixth year, so it's like
Okay,
5 3/4.
so and it's like it's like it this doesn't have the like their last two consoles have not had the legs that like the Wii or the GameCube or the 64. Like every console Nintendo has done has had legs except for Wii U and Switch. Like it seems like they hit a peak and downfall within 2 or 3 years, whereas the other consoles have had legs and longevity, and especially compared to these new ones, like yeah, Sony's having problems meeting demand for PS5, but honestly, like we've talked about, and especially now that I have one, like obviously I don't have the game computer now, but short of the games I can play on the computer compared to what I can play on here right now, like I'm basically playing a gaming computer with, you know,
Oh,
not as much software and not quite as many titles available to me.
100%.
Whereas
They really are mini computers, man. It's amazing
where-
what they were able to
whereas
achieve.
whereas the Switch now seems kind of like I don't know, it I don't want to say it's a step back from the 3DS or the Wii, but it's becoming more and more like it was a sidestep to moving forward. Like instead of a step forward, it was a step to the side, as opposed to Sony not only made a step forward, they made a leap and a bound forward. And I can't really speak to Xbox because Xbox One didn't grab me at all, didn't even bother with it. 360 was where I was at, and it's like the 2 or 3 consoles we've gotten from Microsoft since then have, to me, are baby steps, and Sony is a leap and a bound, and Nintendo is a sidestep as opposed to backwards, forwards, whatever. So yeah, I agree that it will be time for Nintendo needs to step up, or I mean, I hate to say it, but Pokemon and Legend of Zelda like could almost use a console jump. I mean, Pokemon is and always should be, I think, a handheld game, but if they want to do this open world concept, it needs to be done as that style of platform and on a console that can really give you the output you need to make a fun and crazy elaborate game, but I probably won't ever happen. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll disagree a little bit. I don't think the Switch is a sidestep. I think the Switch is an immaculate machine for when it came out. It's just old at this point now, and I have been watching some previews on Scarlet and Violet, and while I'm still very excited for that game, I can't wait to play it. I can't wait to play some co-op with you and everything. It not only in the preview cycle that's running right now, it not only looks pretty shoddy. I think it looks like it runs pretty poorly too, and it's just like, God damn it, man! Like, I don't need high resolution, high frame rate. Well, I guess I kind of need high frame rate now to enjoy things, but it's like I just want these things to look a little better. And we'll see though. I'm still really excited about Scarlet and Violet. I can't wait, and it says I can't wait to play it with you. But the preview cycle that ran this past week, I watched a lot of things, and I was like, ugh, this thing looks rough. It looks very ugly.
yeah,
But
for some of the leaps and bounds that Pokemon has made over the years, like I'm still I'm I will always forever be happy. Like my favorite, like obviously you played Soul Silver, Heart of Gold series. I never got to because I money stuff prevented me from playing getting 3DS and really playing those. And now it would cost you almost as much as a PS5 to get a 3DS and a copy of Heart Gold or Soul Silver. So it's like eventually I'm just going to spend the money on a PC and I'm going to emulate it because that's honestly going to be the cheapest route almost. So um
yeah,
it's just I'm fine with that. I always enjoyed that 8-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit, whatever it became, um, kind of overworld. And then the poke like don't get me wrong, I love the way RCS was set up. I love some of this and that. Like that was awesome. It was fun. It was amazing to me. I just out of Pokemon, you and me are OGs at it. I really don't need all that. But like for Legend of Zelda, you can't keep Legend of Zelda. Like, I feel like it's so handcuffed right now to the system it's on that if you put it like at one point, those were some of the best games in the world on 64. Like, people waited for the next Legend of Zelda game, and now it's like Breath of the Wild was fantastic. Um, I'm sure Tears of the Kingdom is going to be fantastic, but it just seems like these games are being very held back and handcuffed by the system they're on, and it's
yeah, definitely. Like,
kind of
cause
kind of sad.
like Nintendo has amazing game developers, and they make some of the best playing games out there. But unfortunately, like I consistently feel like they're hamstrung by the technology they're on, and they're not able to stretch their artistic legs as much as their design legs. Like, console power doesn't limit how you design a game. I mean, I still think some of the 8-bit JRPGs from a design standpoint are better than what we get nowadays. I think Final Fantasy VI as a design game, a JRPG, is more immaculately put together than 90% of the games we get today in the RPG genre. But visually speaking, I personally feel like the Switch has limited significantly Nintendo's designers and producers in their ability to stretch their legs artistically and visually. So, all right, let's round out the rest of the week and get into the rest of the news. Let's knock some of these things out. The rest of the week went like this. Saturnalia, which I still can't figure out how to pronounce, got a 76. Signalis got an 81. Star Ocean, the Divine Force, speaking of JRPGs, got a 73. Resident Evil Village, the winter expansion, got a 74. Resident Evil Reverse doesn't have a whole lot of reviews yet, but the two that are up don't really seem that great. It has a 2 out of 5 and a 3 out of 10 from the two people that have gave it reviews. And then another game that unfortunately hasn't got a score yet, but I still wanted to bring it back up, is the new king of the naming scheme, and that is Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike, and the Quest for Stale Gum. No scores yet on that, so we will report back when we can. But that is the rest of your week. Like I said, I think Bayonetta and Call of Duty were the big ones. Obviously, Star Ocean has a lot of fans out there. And from what I can gather, it was another fine addition to the franchise as a whole. Anything else you got on these, DJ?
Nope. Other than I might have to take a look at the Garbage Pail game because that name almost wants to make me play it.
It is a name, that is for sure. All right. Well, that was Let's Talk Reviews, where DJ and I went through and reacted to some of the games releasing and how they are being scored. Let us know down below what you have. What your opinion and reaction is to some of these reviewers. Do you think IGN was being too critical of Modern Warfare? And do you think Bayonetta is as good as it's being scored? We're going to go now to the actual stories that encapsulate this week. Starting off at number 2 on the Around the Point, though, our first news story. CD Projekt Red has announced one of the codename titles that they revealed a couple weeks ago. That one being the Cannabis Majoris game, which is now confirmed to be a remake of the original Witcher game in Unreal Engine 5. The company has this to say: this is one of the 5 new games the company we announced earlier this month and previously went by the codename Canis Majoris. This will be a true remake, with the company saying it will be rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5 and is currently in the early stages of development. They went on to say, we want to do this right, so please be patient. It's going to be a while until we can share more details. This is very exciting for me in particular. Not only is The Witcher 3 one of my favorite games of all time, the Witcher series or trilogy as a whole, I think, is an immaculately made series. Although I will acknowledge that the first game is not an easy game to go back and play. It is very late 2000s in some of its gameplay and design decisions, and it's very much, you saw the blueprint for what would eventually become the Witcher series as a whole. But it's very hard to go back and play that game in today's time frame. So this is, I think, nothing but good news, at least for me as a fan of the Witcher series. For those of you that want to see where this all started and get the story, which the story of the first game is another immaculately told story. The writers over at CD Projekt Red, for everything that happened with Cyberpunk 2077 and its failures, the writing team over there is still masterclass in terms of narrative and storytelling. So I think this is nothing but good news for us fans out there. A remake that actually deserves to exist. If you want to throw some shades at some of the Sony stuff that's been going on out there, this is a remake that actually deserves to exist, and I did not see coming. What do you think?
Yeah, I have kind of noted down here, like, I'm all for some of these remakes from, like, we could take games from 80s, 90s, 2000s, even the early 2010s. Like, some of these games that kind of deserve, like, because I mean, back then, like, you had to tell a story because they kind of understood that we don't have the technology to present the game necessarily how we want to present it, but so we can tell a really good story. And I feel like some of these need a new high depth an in-depth remake. You know, the story was good. Let's give it the visuals to match. Um Now obviously some of those have been kind of a waste and kind of mishandled. Like they did the remakes of Grand Theft Auto, what was it? 3, San Andreas and Vice City. And it's like, you know, I'm all for the remakes. Hollywood's doing nothing but remakes, it seems, as of late, for certain genres. But it's like, I would love to see. I mean, I played Grand Theft Auto 4, which I mean, it doesn't sound like it was long ago because we're still on 5 with 6 looming. But Grand Theft Auto 4 was like
No,
2009,
8 actually. I think 8 or 9.
8, and it's like I feel like if you gave it, because I mean, especially on PC, people are modding stuff all the time. If you gave that,
Yeah,
you
April
know,
29th, 2008. Sorry.
if you gave them, if you gave like Grand Theft Auto 4 or Vice City the treatment it kind of deserves, visually, like I think that because Grand Theft Auto 4 to me has one of the best stories for a Grand Theft Auto game. Like 5 was pretty solid. San Andreas is decent, but 4, you know, him being an immigrant trying to get away and get past his life of war crimes and stuff he had to do to survive, and then trying to make himself a new start in America, and then basically kind of stumbling backwards into the life he tried to escape from. It's like it was very good visually for the time, but it could look so much nicer now. And I know there's a plethora of games. They've been, you know, taking the old 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit Final Fantasy games, giving them this stunning visuals that they kind of deserve. I was trying to think of other games that could maybe um use it, but you know, like with this, re give us The Witcher 1, 2, and even 3
The original God of
on
War needs to be remade.
like yes, there's one. I couldn't. I was stumbling through it. I was like, well, you know, we've gotten Crash Bandicoot platformers. We've gotten the Spyros like remastered to brought up to this level, but those really aren't necessarily like it. They do look way better. They run nicer, but those necessarily didn't need that. But like stuff like the original God of War trilogy, the original Gears of War, like I'm saying the older Grand Theft Auto games, like those deserve to get the treatment that like Horizon, the new God of War, the new Modern Warfare, like those stories deserve to be in 8K. Like it just, yeah. So I'm all for this. I hope this looks good. I'll probably get this because then too, like playing some of the games from the catalog on PS on with PlayStation Plus, um, it's like the nostalgia still hits, but it's like you're losing some of it because you're not playing on the PS1 or the GameCube or whatever, and it just you've got, you know, you've got a Toyota, I don't even know. You got a Honda, no, a Honda Civic's not a good example. You have a Ford Taurus engine and a Ferrari body. Like it's I like, you know, or you're using a Ferrari engine to run uh a Ford Taurus. Like it just it's like give me the right body for the engine I'm running it on right now. And it just some of those need that. And I look forward to seeing more of that from some of these companies that, you know, every other company can do smash grabs. Hollywood's doing cash grabs. Like, let's remake and remaster our bangers and make a bunch of money at the box office. Like, do that with games. Like, yeah, some people are going to complain, but I mean, y'all are crapping out the same. You've been crapping out the same Madden game for the last 15 years, and you're raking in cash with it every year. So, some of these other companies could do that, and you know, take 10 years between titles, like or almost 15 by the time it comes out between Grand Theft Auto 5 and 6. Have the B team work on remastering some of the old titles to kind of fill the void in between that time. But you know, I'm not in control of these companies, so I can't force them to do anything.
Yeah, quick interlude before we move on to the next story. Go look up the touchdown that the Eagles just scored. AJ Brown is a different sort of human being. That was ridiculous. All right. Sorry, I got the game pulled up on my phone. So, the next story we're gonna go into now, second story of the week, is a continuation. That's wrong. Another PlayStation story. We have found out that PlayStation is developing a new studio to work in conjecture with Naughty Dog on a major PlayStation game. As spotted by VGC Video Game Chronicles, a job listing shows the new team is being created in collaboration with the PlayStation Studio's Visual Arts Development Studio, which, if you don't know, works unanimously with all PlayStation assets and productions to help on the visual aspect of the game. It says a developer that previously assisted with PlayStation's motion capture, cinematics, animations, and more across several franchises, including the Uncharted series and The Last of Us. This new developer will work in tandem with Naughty Dog to create a PlayStation game. The listing from LinkedIn, I think, says this high visibility project is being developed in collaboration with Naughty Dog. Though currently unannounced, we have a clear vision and plan to release. Using our existing expertise and premier talent, we will guarantee a high visual bar for the game and a compelling experience for all of our players. And the only thing I have to say is, DJ, are you ready for the next Uncharted game? Because it just got to be it, right? I don't think there's anything else other than the next Uncharted game. Like, I don't know
mean,
what else this could be. I have no
I
clue.
feel like we talked about it a while back. The movie, as different as as miscast because they wanted to keep Wahlberg involved, as off as he looked from Sully from the games, everything about that I feel like drew people in, and now it's like, oh, Uncharted 4 was this long ago already. Like, give us something new. Like, it's got to be that. It has to be that. Um,
Considering we've heard rumors abound so much about Uncharted coming back, there was that rumor that, the same people within the visual arts studio originally were working on a remake of the first Uncharted, and then they realized it was going to be too big of a project for them, so they spun off and then started the Last of Us remake, which was then handed off to Naughty Dog because Sony was spending a lot of money on it, and they wanted, no offense to these guys at the visual arts studio, but they wanted somebody or a team that knew that project in and out, and that's how we ended up getting the Last of Us remake. So the rumors of Uncharted coming back in some way, shape, or form have been around since, as early as 2019 and so on. So with all that in set, this is the same link to the same studio within the visual arts service group of Sony. And now Sony has gone on and said, you know what, we're just going to make a brand new team, which, by the way, is the right way to do something. Don't just buy something, make it. And let's make the next Uncharted.
and
And
two,
I'm very
like,
excited.
PlayStation Naughty Dog is like maybe next to Nintendo Game Freak for Pokemon. Granted, that's their only series they've collaborated on, but like PlayStation Naughty Dog is probably one of the best company producer game production combos like ever. Like, I it's been nothing but bangers since day one. Like, they gave them Crash Bandicoot, they moved on, sold it, whatever like all that. But then like the Nathan Drake series,
Well, I mean, you're forgetting a pretty big one in there. So they went Crash Bandicoot PS1, Jack and Daxter PS2, and then they moved on
yeah,
to Uncharted and then The Last of Us. And now with all the rumors that obviously the next thing we're getting from Naughty Dog is The Last of Us Factions, the presumably free-to-play live service multiplayer game set in the Last of Us universe. And then the biggest rumor that came out is they're creating a new IP for the first time since 2013, a new fantasy-based game not in Naughty Dog, but developed by Naughty Dog, which I'm very excited for. So, these guys aren't going to make the next Uncharted. They are slightly busy making whatever it is they're making. So it makes sense to go out and it makes sense for Sony to go out, create a new studio, and give them something that it's clear that Sony has been wanting to do for a while, at least in some retrograde. They've been wanting to bring back Uncharted in some way, and I think the best way is to create a new team, have Naughty Dog oversight them while they're working on their own stuff, and run with a new Uncharted game. Which, by the way, like you were saying, with the movie and the updated interest in the series, I think would be a huge, huge game for Sony fans as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. And if it's a whole new property, awesome. But it's like, I feel like there's a renewed sense of hype around Nathan Drake and having a Nathan Drake's thing. And I'm not saying they have to go get those guys to be the voice actors. Like, the voice actor, I think he was great. I'm glad he got a little cameo in the movie. It just...
Oh, well, I don't think at all this is going to star Nathan Drake. Nathan Drake's story is done. I would bet money that this is either kind of a spin-off title with Sam and Sully, or spoiler alert warning for the end of Uncharted 4, or this is something to do with the daughter and her experiences through the world. Or maybe it's a complete reboot of the series with brand new characters or anything, which I don't really... maybe could work. I don't know. It depends. I just have such an attachment to the original characters, so... I forgot the daughter's name, by the way. What the hell is the daughter's name?
I do not remember at all.
That was C, I thought. But anyway, I would bet my money it's one of those two things, which I would much rather prefer the latter, so... Alright. Anything else you got, brother?
Nope, not on that one.
Alright, let's continue the Sony news train here. Oh, hold on. I typed the wrong thing. There we go. Let's continue the Sony news train here. The dominoes are beginning to fall with word of Sony's intense investment into live service games. We have gotten the announcement of what that first one is going to... Well, I guess technically we have The Last of Us Factions, but we have got an announcement of what the next one is going to be. PlayStation London Studios, the developers of Blood and Truth and The Getaway, has announced it's making an online co-op game set in a fantasy-based version of London, England. The project does not have an official name yet, although there is some artwork you can look at out there that gives you an idea of what the game's going to be. It is a change of direction for the developer. The game won't use any peripherals or gimmicks, which is what London Studio is known for. They've done PSVR games. They did the iToy game back in the day. They developed SingStar that used the PlayStation microphone back in the day. This one, however, is an out-and-out PS5 game built on an updated version of the team's in-house Soho engine. Speaking of games, Industry.biz co-studio head Stuart White revealed that the team wanted to explore new avenues and tackle other challenges. And he says this very confusing line that I'll make fun of it for a second. It says, "We definitely wanted to try something a little bit different, and I think this new project really challenges our brave value and allows us to push ourselves on the curious front." It's an exciting future. It really is. Don't know what that means. Challenge our brave value and push ourselves on the curious front. I don't know what he's trying to say there, but outside of all that, this is one of the first confirmed projects that we have from Sony, knowing that they are kind of pushing into the live service genre. So, what do you think about the concept art that we're looking at here? Both you and I, and those of you listening, you can look at out there, and the possibility of what this could be. By the way, I loved Blood and Truth and The Getaway. It's unfortunate that The Getaway came out right next to GTA, because I think it's one of the better GTA clones out there. But anyway, good developer. We'll see how this works.
Yeah, looking at it, I was like, it kind of piqued my interest. It the concept art looked kind of cool, kind of crazy. It's definitely something different. Um, because I mean, Call of Duty got not the God of War games are dark, but they're not sinister dark. Just dark tonally. Um, and I feel like a lot of games have been, and this is gonna step more into that fantasy realm, but like bring it into like real life instead of giving it that fantasy medieval setting that I feel like every fantasy game has. Like it's gonna bring like that into a modern setting. So I'm very excited for it. I definitely will be looking forward to it when it comes out.
Stupid Mike. Yeah. One other thing we learned from a different source. They said that the project will feature an initial non-linear campaign with side quests and missions, and then will be expanded using post-launch content. So definitely a live service game confirmed. We'll see how it all works out, and I know there's a lot of worries out there with Sony that says making a push into the live service game. They've said something they want anywhere between 10 to 12 live service games by 2026. So we are moving into a very different era of PlayStation than we used to. Um, and like I've said before, with live service games, they just want one to hit. They just need one to hit. Out of these 10 or 12 games, if they can get one off the ground and be successful, that's all they need. These things are money making machines out there. Look at Destiny. Destiny is a money making machine for Bungie and, well, now Sony, now that they own Bungie, but they just need one of those. If 9 of these games fail and one of these games succeeds, then Sony would be 100% okay with that because they'll be raking in the money from that. So we'll see. I'm interested. I'm hesitantly worried about it because I do love Sony and what they represent and the style of games that they have always made. It's my style of games, but I'm interested in see going forward. You know what a first-party Sony live service game looks like and feels like. I have faith, but like I said, I am hesitantly excited about the the outlook of some of these projects. But it's a wait and see game for me. We'll see. Anything else, man?
No, not on that one. Just yeah, looking to see what it is and hope for the best.
All right, like we do each and every month, when the new PlayStation Plus and Xbox games with gold games come out, we tell you guys what they are. And I just realized I forgot to add the Xbox one, so sorry you're not getting those this week. But the PlayStation Plus Essential games for November 2022 have been revealed, and they are as followed. Neo 2 and Neo 2 Remastered are coming to PS4 and PS5. It says master the lethal arts of the samurai as a mysterious half-human, half-supernatural yokai warrior in this challenging single-player action RPG sequel. Take down a host of deadly yokai, seasoned samurai warriors, and gargantuan boss monsters in Teen Ninja's stylized version of Japanese early Sengoku period. Unsheathe your deadly weapons and cut down all enemies in your path using a revamped combat system and the ability to transform into a full yokai to unleash devastating paranormal powers. Lego Harry Potter Collection on PS4. It says the Lego Harry Potter Collection brings together Lego Harry Potter years 1 through 4 and Lego Harry Potter years 5 through 7 remastered. This compilation unites the creative prowess of LEGO and the expansive world of Harry Potter with an exciting journey full of spellcasting, potion making, puzzle solving, lessons, dueling, and much more. Enjoy two-player fun, either local or online, And finally, Heavenly Bodies. Discover the ever-changing nuances of weightless motion in this challenging physics game, featuring a collection of stellar scenarios inspired by the feats of space explorers and researchers throughout history. Wrangle control of your cosmonaut's arms with the left and right thumbsticks to push, pull, and clamber through physically stimulating scenarios aboard a scientific research station alone or with a friend via local co-op. So there's your PlayStation Plus Essentials. Another good month, in my opinion. Sony seems to do pretty good with the essentials, the free games that anybody who has PlayStation Plus has access to, especially having Neo 2 on there, and then Lego Harry Potter for those fans. But from what I can gather, Heavenly Bodies is a very well liked game by the people who have played it. So I might jump in and check it out. Who am I kidding? I ain't got time for anything. I got Call of Duty, God of War, Pokemon. I ain't got time. But another good month for
Those will
you out
be
there.
added to the list.
Yeah,
Halo 2,
the ever
Heavenly
expanding
Body,
list.
I'm both excited for. I mean the Heavenly Bodies, it's in space, it's like puzzle and scenarios, like I'm down for that. Played and platinumed both. Oh, were they platinums? Those might have been all achievements. I don't. Yeah, that was 360 days. But
Sad,
Lego
sad
Harry Potter
soul.
games, the Lego Harry Potter games are both very very fun. Nothing like the mayhem of Heaven 4. Lego Lord Voldemort's on screen, just Avada Kedavraing every single thing on screen because you ain't got time to play around no more. So yeah, if I ever get the time again, I will definitely be in on those for sure. But I mean, in all likelihood, that probably won't be who knows? Like we'll have to hit a lull like we hit this year for that. And I don't know if we'll hit that next year with, we won't hit it at the end of this year. We'll have Call of Duty as a constant now, at least for another year. Um, and then like next year we've got Hogwarts for sure. There's 2 or 3 other games that got pushed back from this year.
Don't forget
Um,
about Spider-Man. It's
Spider-Man.
been
I'm sure we'll
reconfirmed
get
that it is on pace to hit 2023. I can't
we'll,
fucking
we'll
wait.
get we'll get teased by Skull and Bones all the next year, I'm sure. um,
Delayed to
but
March of
yeah,
2024, 2 weeks before it releases. Dude,
yeah,
I
no
just
shit. Um,
I don't know what's going on
it
with that game.
it I so all 3 of those. I mean, the Lego games are always a fun and relatively easy platinum. For the for the trophy hunters out there. The other 2 or 3 sound like a blast. My interest is peaked in both. I'll definitely have to take a peek at those for sure.
Yeah, like I said, PlayStation does a pretty good job with the PlayStation Plus releases, at least on the essential frame. We can have an argument about the premium tier and how that is very lackluster, but that's a story for another time, I guess. Going on to the next story. This is kind of not kind of, it's definitely a Mike story to be had, but we got new information on what's going on over at BioWare. It says Dragon Age Dreadwolf is now playable from beginning to end following the completion of the alpha phase at BioWare, the studio has confirmed. Described as a big milestone for the developer, excuse me, it can now see, hear, feel, and play everything as a cohesive experience. Now it's time for the developer to focus on the RPG's visual fidelity and improving gameplay features, with rumors suggesting it'll be out in late 2023. To note, BioWare also has a new Mass Effect game in the works, tentatively titled Mass Effect 4, a sequel to the much beloved Mass Effect trilogy. It says completing the alpha phase of development also means BioWare can evaluate the game's pacing, how relationships evolve over time, and the player's progression, as well as the narrative cohesion of the story. It will look at ways of enhancing how it conveys characters, dialogue, cinematic, and the player's journey through the experience. Now that we have the ability to do a complete playthrough, we can iterate and polish on the things that matter most to our fans. So, this is very exciting. It's very good to hear that development is going well. It's definitely been a long time coming for the next BioWare game. I'm happy that they're going back to their roots with their next 2 games that are coming out. Obviously, we had Anthem come out, which was a story all to itself. Changed the video game industry in a meaningful capacity with how we look at game development and how we look at BioWare as a whole. But I am hoping that this works out, and it's a return to form somewhere of BioWare, especially someone who has a love for this studio, this developer, and a lot of their games that came out. And I remember, Jade Empire when it came out, obviously the original Mass Effect, the Dragon Age games. I've enjoyed all of them to differing degrees of quality, and It just seems like in the past decade or so, they've ran into some hiccups and some bad leadership and direction at the studio that led to, Mass Effect Andromeda being what it was, and then at the very bottom end of their time in the spotlight, Anthem, as it released, the way it released, and what that game ended up being. So I just hope and pray that the studio has gotten back on the foot, gotten back on top of things, and can now realize I'm gonna call from my mom. Sorry, mom. I'll talk to you later. But yeah, they can now realize what made them great back in the day. So let's hope Dragon Age Dreadwolf is as good as I hope it is. I hope maybe some of you hope it is out there. And then let's all cross our fingers for what Mass Effect 4 is going to be and maybe has the chance to be. All right, so what do you think, DJ,
Okay.
about the possibility of seeing a return to form for BioWare in the realm
Um,
of Dragon Age Dreadwolf and the next Mass Effect game?
I'm hopeful for it. You are one of the handful of people that I have heard just Dragon Age and Mass Effect were like at their times, like that was the game. Like we have our game now, but like those highlighted a great period. And I feel like especially every time Dragon Age has been brought up, you've been like, man, like why can't we just get back to how we were and all the problems and issues? And I'm hopeful that it can make that comeback for you. And maybe someday I'll give him a shot.
I mean, all I can do is hope and pray and just maintain a positive attitude on life and outlook. That's all we can all do, I guess, in a philosophical sense. All right. Next story on Around the Point. Phil Spencer was sitting down with the Wall Street Journal and gave an interview and had some interesting things to say in terms of price increases and what's going to happen in the near future. This is what Phil Spencer had to say. He says, I do think at some point we'll have to raise the prices on certain things. But going in this holiday, we thought it was important to maintain the prices. We've held price on our console, we've held price on games, and our subscription. I don't think we'll be able to do that forever. I do think at some point we'll have to raise prices on certain things. So, this is just the next domino to fall in what is the world's economy that we're in right now. I've been saying for a long time out there to some of the people complaining about the price of video games, consoles, and everything that stand down, pull it back a little bit. We're living in a golden age of video games in a sense of price to performance or price to, I guess, the amount that we're getting. And, I said this was coming, back when PlayStation raised the price of the PS5 across most territories. I said, this isn't going to be the end. There's going to be more things. We saw Oculus and MetaQuest raise the prices of their consoles by $100 each one, and this is just the world that we live in. Like, things are expensive, and I don't think people realize or have a good idea of how much these things cost to make. Like, how much it costs to make God of War, how much it costs to make Call of Duty each and every year, or now every other year. And
And
we've
like
been,
with some of these other, yeah, no, go ahead.
no, I'll just say we've just been living in a golden age of game prices for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And this is just bound to happen. Things get more expensive, and like I've said time and time again, we've had it good in gaming. In the past decade plus, all the way through the PS3 generation and the PS4. So the seventh and eighth video game generations, we didn't see a single increase in price, which is unheard of historically. And then obviously with the ninth generation, we saw the increase of $10 and now we're seeing the increases, the increases of the price of the console, and or in Microsoft's case, Xbox's case, probably the increase to their subscription service is probably what this will go into be. But so
Well,
I
and
don't really see this as a super bad thing per se. I see it as an inevitability of the world that we live in. Maybe things will go back down in the next couple years when Russia decides to quit their shit or the economy bounces back in a way. But, if you know anything about economics, when you're in a recession, things have to get really bad before they fix themselves. So we're still on the downslope, guys. I'm sorry to say.
and
All right, what do you got?
honestly, with some of this, like we talked about before, like with the level and rate that these run at now, these new consoles, like I said, they're basically a gaming computer. And like you build me out, like you made a build for me to maybe play like Tarkov and Rust and some of these games and like my Age of Empires and Civilization. Like you built me a cost-effective PC to run those games kind of at like some of them at their maximum, at their minimum, some of them at their average. And that was $1,000. Like that's just for a decent setup to kind of hit the ground running. Like I know people that have spent almost 10 grand on their gaming setup and their rig, and that's not even if you're into the sim racing that people do where you have basically a full car built in by your setup to play racing games in. Like that can run you 20 to 30 grand if you got the money for it. Like so to have to pay 5 or 600 for these new consoles isn't that bad. And I've already heard and seen rumors of well, now they're going to call it the Oculus. Then the
Oh,
Oculus
the
3, I think,
Quest
is gonna be called.
Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not a gaming focused one. That's actually for
No.
businesses and all that, but still $1,500.
Um, yeah. And it's like when I saw that, it's like, and you hear people talking about it, and it's like, that's not gonna make the leap and bound that they wanted to make and we wanted to make until it becomes consumer until the price becomes um wow, I can't think of the words I'm trying to say. Appropriate enough that the average consumer can see spend like $1,500. Like for a lot of people, that's a house payment, that's rent, 2 months rent. That's for me, that's 3 car payments. Like as much as I love games, like and like I'll probably have spent that much on video games and consoles this year alone. Like that for just a port and like none of the games or programs attached to it, like that's a lot of money. And like I know going back to the computer that I will now probably that'll get pushed to the end of next year depending on everything else that happens around me, but like that's going to be a grand just for the hardware and software to put in the game, not like or put into the computer, let alone the money I'm going to have to spend on Steam. Granted, most of the games I want are usually on sale or rather cheap now, so like that won't be a big a hit as money, and it'll even out. But like I said, like 1,500 is to your average Joe that's not pulling in 6 figures a year. 1,500 is like that can be a full paycheck or like 2 paychecks, and that's just something everyday consumers can't afford to pay. And like you said, I'm sure it'll balance out. Things will, you know, we're, you know, still seeing if we're hitting rock bottom as far as like the economy and everything works. And I'm not going to go into that because A, I don't know a lot about it. And B, like, that's not what we're here to talk about. But I like, like you said, the PlayStation increase happened and Xbox One was inevitable. It was going to have to happen sooner or later. So it's kind of like, it's like, it had to happen. Like, there really wasn't a shock. It wasn't like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, and like you said, yeah, we were all kind of like pissed the games got popped to 70, but it's like we could have been paying 70, 80, 90 a long time ago already. And honestly, for some of these games that come out, usually some of us are buying the $200 collector's edition because we want all the shit and all the extras and all the bells and whistles anyways. So like for some of these games, like so for like Call of Duty, it was $70 and then 20 for the battle pass and this, that, and the other. Or for an extra $10 and spend 100, I was gonna get Call of Duty, the battle pass, and a bunch of extra goodies. Like, what's the $10? Like with God of War, that's 210, I think, after taxes. Like, okay, 70 on the game, and what's you know $120 or $30 or whatever in collectible stuff. Like, so like honestly, like some of these like we talked about, like one of our big things is, would I pay 60 to play, or like I brought up with Call of Duty earlier, like if I would have just had to pay 40 or 35 for the campaign, would I be satisfied with it? For the most part. There's games where, I only paid 30 or 40, like with Stray. If I wouldn't have got it technically for free with my PlayStation Plus subscription, I would have had to pay 30 for it, I think. That's worth the $30. But there's been some games where it's like that was not worth the money, all of the money I paid for it. Like, um, so it just I think this might push people to be more picky and choosy about their games instead of just getting every game or every hyped game that comes out. Like, to me, I'm not huge on the like Elden Ring type games, so I didn't get it. I spent my 70, oh, might have been 60 yet on Horizon. Like, you just all that's going to do is make people more picky and choosy about what game they drop their money on.
Which I honestly think is good. Like, don't just buy the next EA game that comes out or the next Sony game that comes out. Buy something that you believe deserves your hard-earned money and hard-earned cash. Um, and
Which we talk about a lot, especially sports games wise. Like I told Lena, once stuff gets a little less rocky, or I'll see if there's a price drop in it, I'll probably get the 2K23 golf game because it looks like the Tiger Woods games of old for me, which I would love to play again. But like, I know we're kind of waiting on NCAA. Just because an NCAA game comes out doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. I'm going to see how it looks first.
oh no, dude, I'm sorry, I'm there day one. I can't.
I I haven't bought a Madden game that wasn't reduced in price
Oh, dude, it's
since
like
2000.
2014 or 15, something like that for me.
Well,
It's been a
so
long
for
time for
me,
me.
I think it's 2009 when Brett Favre was on the cover. Then I kind of went to like every other year, or I would wait till they had their first price drop partway through the year. Um, 20. I think actually no, I think I did buy whenever Odell was on the cover. I think I bought that one almost new price. But then like the Madden after that, I got it for $3 because it was like 2 or 3 months before the next one was coming out, and it was just like, get it and play. It's $3. Like, yeah, that's about all I want to spend on a Madden game right now because they're shitting and they're taking the same shit in a box and slapping a new name on it every year. Like, it's not worth my hard-earned money for a game that doesn't work. Like, yeah, I'll buy the show here and there, but like some of these games, like if it's not worth the money or it's not a game I like to play a lot, unless I can get it for a reduced price or on sale or a demo to give it a try, like I'm not spending the money on it anymore. And like 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 we've talked about, like our little group, Worthy doesn't buy Madden anymore. One of his brothers has to physically buy it for him if they want him to play. Um, Logan doesn't sound like he's huge on some of those sports games. I know you and me are on that same fiddle where the NCAA games were way better, way more fun. Madden is the same shit, different day every year for the last decade. Like, um, I forget where I was going with that. Like, it's one of those like our the 4 or 5 of us not buying it isn't going to stop them from just crapping out the same game with a different title, with a different number on it every year, because there's still, 3 million copies or 50 million copies or whatever of Madden being sold. Like, so like five or
But
six
I
of us
mean,
aren't going to stop it. But
that doesn't really matter what the individual can, like the impact it can happen. Like the only thing you can do as a consumer is vote with your wallet.
yeah,
It's a hill I'm going to die on. Is buy what you feel like deserves it. And me
and like,
personally, I
dude,
don't feel like Madden and honestly most of the sports games deserves my money. So I haven't bought
oh
a
yeah,
Madden game in a
I
decade. You know.
I hate to sound like this, but I mean, I kind of shame people when they're like, "Oh, well, did you get the new Madden?" It's like, why? It's not new. The only thing new about it is whoever's on the cover and the number changed. Like nothing else. Oh, the graphics are so much better. Really? Are they? They can't get much better. And okay, so it looks like I'm watching a game on TV, but it might look like that aesthetically, but when I watch the game on Sunday, I don't have a middle linebacker jumping, higher than a human could possibly jump to make a one-handed interception over the middle. I don't have a guy makes a juke and a wide receiver, or not a wide receiver, a defender misses the dive tackle and still somehow causes a fumble, and then it gets kicked around for 15 minutes and then picked up and either ran 90 yards for a touchdown, or it gets ran 90 yards and then gets stripped and ran another 90 yards for a touchdown. Like it for a sit, it's like most of EA's games are sports simulations, and they suck at simulating. Like it it just, yeah, like we've talked about, it's not worth my money anymore, so I don't spend the money on it. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. The final story of this week's episode is, I guess, a non-starter because there's been an update to the episode that I failed to see originally. But I'll still let you know what was said originally. The original story was about EA and how they're stopping physical game sales in some of the territories. The original story goes like this. It says, the ongoing shift from physical goods to digital downloads continues to have a negative impact on sales development, according to EA Germany's latest annual reports. It says revenues from digital downloads is not processed through EA, but through an affiliate, and they had made the claim that they were going to stop producing physical games, FIFA, Battlefield, and more throughout Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Scandinavia. That was the original story, ran on October 27th, but however, on October 28th, EA denied all of that and said, we have not stopped physical distributions of our games in Germany, Austria, or Switzerland, and players will continue to be able to buy our games from retailers across the region. Recent reports stating otherwise are an inaccurate reflection of disclosures made by EA Germany's statutory financial statements. So, regardless of EA denying that claim, I still feel like we are living in the death of physical media. You and I have talked about it at endless conversations, both on and off podcast. But I still feel like, we're living in the death of what it is, especially with the unsubstantiated rumors so far, but pretty believable rumors that PlayStation next iteration on the PS5 will come with a removable disc drive or a purchasable secondary disc drive, and the actual console will not have one installed. We've also heard claims from not claims. We've also heard sales numbers from Sony reported that right now, as it sits, every 5 games sold via the oh my god, every 5th game sold on the PlayStation 5 is a physical game, which means digital sales are 4-1 in favor on the PlayStation Store and PlayStation games as a whole. So we are living in the death of physical media, which sucks for collectors like DJ and myself out there. But at the same time, it is kind of nice for operational speaking in terms of interacting with the consoles and all that. But yeah, it's sad. It sucks. This was obviously a non-starter story because of the conflicting statements by EA, but still regardless, DG and I know the future
Well,
that's ahead of us, and I don't like it.
yeah. Well, and I reading into that too, the countries that it listed are much more self-conscious about recycling efforts than we are. So there's definitely going to be a push in those countries to go digital with some of this stuff because now you're not taking up spaces at recycle or you're not having to recycle the game or the case, and in most cases those are just getting tossed out. So now those things that really aren't biodegradable or take a lot of years to disintegrate aren't getting chucked into the landfills. They're not ending up in dumpsters. Like overall, it will be better for the environment. But like, I mean, Lena made me get rid of all the DVD cases and move to just like I have a big binder. It's pushing like I think that binder's 700 or 800 movies and it's coming up on full and I don't even have all the movies in that binder or all my CDs in that binder like um and I follow plenty of people on TikTok that it's like they have just walls and walls and walls of DVDs and they're terrified of this, but I mean it's one of those things that's better for the environment, shitty for the collectors. The one thing that made me chuckle was it's EA talking about this, and I was like, my one comment I've written down is maybe they should focus on making good games first and then worry about like the environmental impact or the sales impact of them selling physical copies versus digital copies. um and two, like you said, like collector wise, like we both have a collector's edition of God of War coming. Now I have a base and you have the more elaborate one with the vinyl, but we're not getting a physical copy. We get a digital code, but we are still getting a steel book, a collectible steel book for a disc to go in, even though there's no disc to go in it. And that's just kind of like,
Can I be honest? I actually kind of like that because, well, I wish I had a physical disc. At least I have a case to put on
yeah,
my shelf and all that.
yeah,
Um, Now there is an argument out there that physical media isn't dying, especially in the music industry, where we're seeing a revitalization and honestly a thriving physical version in terms of like vinyls and records and all that. Now I do pause on that because there is a distinct difference in quality between a digital version of a song and a physical version of a song on vinyl or CD-ROM. Whereas in the gaming industry, there isn't a difference between those two things. Like whether you download the game or play it on disc, it's going to operate and look the exact same way. So that's where I feel like, it's not going to be a music industry terms of rejuvenation of physical media. It's just going to keep going down and down the hill as we move closer to a all digital age.
yeah. And like I've discussed with her, I like the last handful of Call of Duties I've bought in all digital copies. With um because too it makes stuff more effortless for me. Like I don't have to like now it's oh I want to play this. Oh shit, where's my either I gotta find the one or two books I have games in, or I gotta hope it's still in its case. But like if most of my games are digital, it can be shut down this game, open up this game, shut down this game, open up this game. It's not shut down this game. Okay, where's the disc for the game I want to play? Look for 5-10 minutes. It's not one of the three spots it should be in. It's probably packed away. All right, guess I'm not playing that game and move on. Or like two, there's games that I played and I was overplaying and they were just sitting here collecting dust and not being in the collector mindset so much for games as I have been. Like I sold a few of them, but now it's like, oh, I got the time. I want to play it again. Now it's like I have to go and rebuy that game. I can't just like like seeing some of them, especially some of the Assassin's Creed games and some of the other games I had for PS4 throughout the tenure it had. Like there's games I got rid of that's like, man, I'd like to play that again, but then I can't play it. Like it knows I owned it and it knows I played it, but because I was using a disc, now I either have to buy it digitally or go rebuy the disc. Now, granted, I might only have to spend a few dollars on the disc now because it's an older game, but
Well, the good news is I'm pretty sure all the Assassin's Creed games are now on PlayStation Plus. They've been adding them pretty
yes,
rapidly.
yes,
So
I think almost all of them are, which I
yeah.
was like, good, because honestly, that was like I forget what the name of it is. It's the steampunky London one.
Syndicate.
Yes. So that was one because I was kind of way behind on games, and next thing you know, it's like there's Unity, there's Syndicate, there's Origins, like, and I played three, I played Black Flag, and then I tried Unity, was like meh, because that was very let's play online. I tried Syndicate, was like, yeah, this has potential, but other stuff came up. Um, I think that's kind of when Fortnite came out. And then I tried I don't even remember what else came in between there. Oh, Origins. I never even touched Origins. The only reason I think I own it now, I might have actually sold it again. I got it for like $4. Um, like I played all of Odyssey. Um, didn't was waiting, was hyped for Valhalla, and then you were like, it is same bullshit. And I was like, man, I'm not going through that shit again. Like I'm hyped for the new ones, but it's just it's one of those. There's some things I'm glad they're digital, and there's some things I'm always gonna want to get a physical. Like I'm pretty sure you can buy Scarlet and Violet digitally, but to me, it's like I don't know. It doesn't seem right to buy stuff digitally on Nintendo.
Yeah, it seems weird considering that console has what can be attributed to next to no internal storage. So, all
Yeah.
right.
Well, the only thing that sucks though is those games are so goddamn small. Like I lost I lost Mario Kart. I have no idea where it is, how I lost it, or when I lost it. Well, I know about when I lost it, but I don't know how or where I like misplaced it. And it's like now I have to either buy it digitally, pray to God I find it, or I'd like and it's like Mario Kart is like one of my top games on Nintendo and I can't even play it right now.
Yeah, that is the thing that sucks about, you know, physical versus digital. But I also, I've said it time and time again, so I don't want to redo it too much. I agree that it is kind of a war I have to have inside myself, of it is nice to just sit on the sofa and switch between games and not have to get up and go put the disc in and all that. But in that same breath, I like having the games on my shelf and all that. So it's a war that I fight with myself all the time, and I know the inevitability, but I still don't want it to come. All right, so anything else, man?
No, I think that's just about it.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of Around the Point on News section. Let us know down below in the comments on our Patreon feeds and everywhere you can interact with us what you think about some of the things we talked about. Are you excited about the Witcher remake? What do you think about PlayStation's co-op live service game? Are you mad that Xbox is more expensive? We're not here, but let us know down below what you got to think. Our last thing now is out this week, where we go through some of the games releasing in the coming week for you to play. And by all intents and purposes, this is definitely a down week in what is going to be, again, another just deluge of video games. But anyway, on November 3rd, Endling Extinction Forever comes out on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. How to Say Goodbye comes out on Nintendo Switch, PC, Mac, iOS, and Android. The Chant on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PC. The Entropy Center on PS5 for Xbox Series X and S, PC. WRC Generations on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Die by the Blade on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. From Space on Nintendo Switch and PC. Horse Tales Emerald Valley Ranch on PS5, PS4, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Then, on November 4th, Demon Throttle on Nintendo Switch. Harvestella, the farming simulator game from Square Enix, on Nintendo Switch and PC. And then It Takes Two on Nintendo Switch. What do you got, brother?
Yeah, I like I said,
Good thing we're busy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Call of Duty. In a week from tomorrow, we get God of War. Another 2 weeks, we get Pokemon. Which sad to say I won't be playing that opening weekend because that comes out opening weekend of deer gun season in Wisconsin. So Lena is actually probably going to have to go pick it up for me because I will be out of town already. So I probably won't be able to play that till that next week or the following weekend.
Yeah, there's nothing here for me. Like I said, good thing I'm busy because I guess, unfortunate that I'm busy because I don't get a chance to play any of these absolute bangers. Although It Takes Two is a fantastic co-op game that I think you and Lena would really, really enjoy playing together.
Yeah, that's
But
probably about the only one that I'm kind of hyped that's coming out.
but it's on the Switch and you can get it on
Yeah,
PS5. Don't buy it on the Switch, please. All
I
right,
won't.
ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our show. Everyone who's either been watching or listening, we just wanted to take this time, as always, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Without your support, we could not be doing what we're trying to do here. But please help us continue to grow by telling everyone out there that you know who has even the slightest appreciation for all things pop culture that they have some new friends waiting to talk all sorts of fandoms with them. We would greatly appreciate it. DJ, any last words?
No, just thanks for having me back again. I always enjoy my time and conversations with you both on and off air. So uh look forward to getting some Call of Duty in this week with the boys, and hopefully your restart the mission tricks works for me and I can give you my thoughts on these final two missions in the campaign for Modern Warfare 2.
Before we head out, we always like to give a shout out to our Patreon Platinum members, the highest tier that we have on Patreon, Mr. Logan Leffler, month in, month out. As always, we appreciate you with everything that we have to appreciate you. If you want to be a part of our Patreons, you can go over to patreon.com and subscribe to one of our 4 tiers, those being the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum tiers, which come with a litany of rewards and insider looks into the show, into the grander show and scale of the channel. Once again, thanks everyone for listening and following along with us. This has been another episode of the XP Podcast brought to you by all of us here at The Experience Point. I hope everyone has a great week. And as always, we'll talk to you guys in the next one. See ya.
Bye, guys.